Welcome, welcome, welcome. This Sunday, uh, not much going on. I want to say Sundays are usually kind of a quiet, not quiet, but chill, kind of lazy, relaxing stream. And the minute I do say that, I know I'm going to end up cursing it. So I'll just say happy Sunday and we'll see what happens today. The news is full of the Iran Israel stuff, which I haven't I haven't delved into enough of detail yet, but partly it's because hey, Bexx, is that Bexx? Hey, Bexx. Partly because I'm just not interested enough. I'm gonna let all the uh, narratives and reality making whatever sift itself out, and then I'll check in on it like over the next few weeks. But I'm not in a rush to try to come up with a narrative about it based on a few headlines and articles over the last 24 hours from behind a laptop. Um, I do. My instinct tells me it's going to be weird if people start siding with Iran against Israel. Like if Israel bothers them that much, I mean, they're already siding with Hamas, or not Hamas, but Gaza. Which to me, where do you draw the line? Anyway, that is all to say that is what I noticed mostly in the news today. They shot some missiles at Israel last night, and some other countries helped shoot them down. And I don't know. I've grown up with this stuff. I remember even in elementary school, because I was a kid, like a elementary school kid, when the Iran hostage situation happened under Jimmy Carter, just before Reagan got elected, and they had us. We could write letters to the hostages. I remember in class one day I didn't know what any of that meant, but it sounded bad, and that they were holding these people. And so we wrote letters to the hostages and the Ayatollah Khomeini or something. And that's when I became aware as a kid that like the Middle East was a very volatile part of the world, and there was all this conflict, and it just continued my whole adult life. So I knew that part of the world, and then I grew up in the Cold War too. So I grew up with this sense of impending war at any second, my whole entire life. And so this doesn't set off anything special outside of that to worry about. I'm just going to see how it plays out. But I'm not at the verge of World War III scenario yet, because I've kind of been at that verge my whole life. It has been normalized for my generation. Welcome, Chuck.
Hey, Jeff. I can give you a brief rundown if you want
Absolutely.
of what I know anyway from what little research I did last night. There's like some 200 drones, inter uh, missiles, and cruise missiles that were fired. What makes the whole thing unique is that quite a few of them were fired from Iran, which is the first time in history that Iran has
Right.
fired upon. Uh, the United States shot down like 70 or 75 of the drones.
You mean the
And
first time that Israel was fired upon directly by Iran?
yes, and from Iranian soil.
Yeah.
I meant from Iranian soil. All the other times it's been from Lebanon, Syria,
The proc.
Gaza. Yeah, the proxies. This first time they've actually launched themselves. The U.S. shot down 70 something drones, three or more missiles and cruise missiles. Uh, Jordan also participated in shooting down some of the
Yeah, like
missiles.
all of their neighbors. Like if that doesn't send a message to Iran,
Well, you got to remember, Trump negotiated the Abraham Accord before he was lost office.
that was with
It was,
Israel.
yeah, between their neighbors in Israel. So
So you
they
think that
had
might
that.
have been somewhat of an outgrowth of that?
Well, the other countries helping Israel, yeah, because they had a treaty with
And I
them.
still think it's the smart thing to do and the right thing to do. So to me the sane rational response is to help Israel, and like
And when it all comes out in the wash, you're going to find other countries were involved to help shoot down those missiles, whether it be by
what
plane
they
or.
said, didn't Britain help, and uh one of those Eastern countries, Eastern Europe countries. I think there were some other countries that helped.
And then what was the other fascinating? Oh, and then they had the phone call between Sleepy Joe and Netanyahu, and
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention today. Like, yes, like I'm looking for points in favor or against either candidate because I really don't want to vote for either one. And Biden's campaign hired that DEI director, and that was a big point against Biden. And then his like telling Netanyahu not to strike back and that they're not going to support. That's another one. If he doesn't support Israel, if he pulls support for Israel, and
he
Trump
did.
continues to support Israel, that's going to be another thing that tilts me to the Trump column, even
He
though that's
said
not where I want to be.
Biden told him he would help defend Israel, but he could
Not
not back
retaliate.
them on a counterattack.
Well,
Correct?
do
If
they
they,
need him? Like, do they need Biden to
yeah,
back? They
yeah.
can't just retaliate on their own.
Technically, they
Why?
do.
Because of treaties?
Well, because we're better equipped to take out their uh, missile sites, their uh, air defense
Oh, so they would need
capability.
us in part of that response. They would need our help. They can't just respond on their own. This is where I
They
wish we
can,
really did have Joshua Jones back.
they can, they can. They've done it before, but if they do get help, I think it's you're not going to see it plastered across the news. It's going to be behind the scenes because
If
Joe
the
don't want
Israel
to.
situation has the potential to improve under Trump, or the support for Israel, that's going to be a big
You
carrot for
think
him.
so?
And Kushner is Jewish, isn't he? Doesn't he have an attachment to what
Yes,
happens in Israel?
he's Jewish, and so is Ivanka. She converted to Judaism.
Well, I don't know her. I consider her a sociopath, so I don't take seriously any loyalties she professes to have.
Who?
No offense, Ivanka, if you're watching. Ivanka, the daughter.
Oh, the
I used to
daughter.
watch her on
Yeah,
The Apprentice, and I got like even watch her on The Apprentice. I got the impression she was one of his assistants.
yeah. Well, she's the one married to Jared. So
Yeah.
I had one other point. Trying to remember what the heck it was.
Was it Biden? Like Biden's part of the response or his phone call?
Well, well, before I think it was when the attack first started or was detected that they was in the war room, the situation room with Lloyd Austin and Obama and all them other people, and the president made the decision to help protect Israel, but not go any further than that. So most of the missiles and stuff were shot down before they even hit Israeli territory, airspace,
Yeah, that's
which
what I heard.
which I found fascinating.
Frank, it depends because it's so much of this is narrative based, and it depends on how you cast the different actors.
Technically, yes, technically Israel is the victim.
I consider I consider Gaza and Iran the aggressors. Although Iran was an retaliation, but from what I understand, Israel did not claim responsibility for that strike on the consulate, and B, from what I did read, if they did strike it, it was part of this retaliation
IRGC.
against Hamas because some of the people that were involved in the Hamas attack were meeting at that consulate. So that was part of the retaliation for October 7th. And that's their justification for it if they do claim it. So it wasn't unprovoked in their mind.
And the other thing I look at too when trying to figure out who's right or who was wrong was Egypt, which is on the border of Gaza, and won't they don't do anything to help the Palestinians. even though they're Arabic. You
Oh
know what I
no, in
mean?
fact, I have a tweet that reminds me. I do have a tweet talking about exactly that. The fact that several Arab countries helped thwart the Iranian attack on Israel proves two things. Reports of the death of Israel's regional alliances have been greatly exaggerated, and Israel's neighbors respect strength, which is why, especially now, they respect Israel. That's the nation that they want there,
Mm-hmm.
defending their territory.
Well,
Arab
you got
nations just joined with Israel in defending the Jewish state against the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is a new day. That's probably the most significant part of this. And
yes,
this guy says,
yes.
as I've been saying this whole time, Israel's neighbors know that Israel is a relatively safe and peaceful neighbor that makes an excellent counterweight to Iran. Um, who they are genuinely scared of. None of them are going to lift a finger against Israel as long as this is the case. No one is coming to save the Palestinians. So if you want to side with the Palestinians in Iran, be my guest. You're just showing who you are. Oh, the guy
Well, I understand Saudi Arabia even had a hand in it.
in defending, like helping
Yeah,
Israel. Yeah, that
yeah.
I saw that too.
And I was really shocked to find out that Jordan did.
Yeah, the king. I
But
saw that.
Jordan may have done it too for their own security reasons. They
Well,
didn't want
hopefully
that.
they're all doing it for their own security reasons. That's the
I
best.
hope
That's
so.
actually the motive I would trust the most. And I think they are doing it for their security reasons. Like that's what I've been saying from the start. Israel is a like stable Western democracy. It is in everybody's best interest to support something like that in that part of the country, and even the people that live there know that. And
And
that Iran
mind
is
you,
correct.
I agree you got hatred both ways as far as the people go. But hatred shouldn't dictate what side of the thing you're on. It should be who was right and who was wrong, in
Well,
my
it does
opinion.
though, because like
I know.
probably the majority of people are emotion based or like limbic based, and if you have enough deal frontal cortex or whatever, you might be more rational and able to base it, like not necessarily put emotion aside, but consider emotion as only one factor or data point in the situation. But the majority of humans on this planet are not going to do that. So it's
Right.
only most of them are going to side emotionally
You're
based on
right.
the,
You're
the
right.
the superficial narrative that it generates in based on their past values, experiences, etc. Even smart people, as we saw with the Israel thing, like a year or so ago when it started happening, or October, I guess. Um, even on here, even all the very smart people, I could see a lot of emotional and motivated reasoning.
And for what it's worth, I don't know what the UN Security Council was supposed to meet today at 1 or 2 o'clock. I don't know what's going to come out of that.
Yeah, they're meeting today.
Yeah,
Oh.
emergency session of the
Well, I
Security
mean, I
Council.
guess it's probably wouldn't hurt to do, but I'm not. I for some reason I'm just not catastrophizing about this. I hardly thought about it. Like I had to keep reminding myself throughout the day. Oh yeah, Iran's attacking Israel. There's something going in the Middle East. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, I was like glued to the computer for weeks, trying to see every little tidbit, so I could
I
figure out
think
what danger it was going to be to the world. I don't feel that way about this
I
thing.
think it would have been a bigger thing if they would have kept attacking as opposed to shoot
Yeah,
them
like
and
they were
quit.
trying to stay fake. They were trying. They had to do something, and
Right.
but it had to be a calculated, measured something.
Except it was a little overkill with the
Yeah,
amount
and
they
it
shot.
exposed a lot too. That's what I like. I don't know like all their behind the scenes stuff, but just strategically from my distance, it was a big risk for not a lot of gain, and one of the risks is what it would expose as a result, and that's what I think is going to ultimately work against them. It's they played their hand, and now what that play reveals is
Yeah,
doesn't seem favorable to them.
I remember in the late 70s, early 80s. I was up in an airplane flying in circles, and we were waiting for the president to give us the green light because we were going to attack Iran.
Was this under? This was Reagan.
Yeah, it was under
What
Reagan.
year? I don't remember that one, but I didn't really pay
Early,
attention.
it was
What
the
year?
early 80s.
Like sort of
Uh,
after the hostage situation.
yes, there was another situation that was starting to develop, but we had all four services in position ready to go. And he finally pulled the plug. So we all ended up at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and we sat there for 4 weeks waiting for him to make up his mind what he was going to do. I love
Wait,
Israel.
for
They
four
have
weeks? You
yeah,
were there for 4 weeks?
in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Yeah,
Oh. And then what they decided? They decided not to,
right.
because I don't
But
remember anything. I
we
remember when
were
the
on.
hostages came home, everybody was happy, and then like in my little child mind, that was the end of it.
There was something else. I had to dig through my records, but something else flared up shortly thereafter with them. And when they seen
So
Reagan wasn't messing around, they backed off.
that was one of the reasons they say he got elected, was because like he timed the release of the hostages to make it like look most unfavorably for Jimmy Carter and most favorably for him, so that
Oh,
he would get the credit for, like he would get the boost from it. Um,
was it Carter sent somebody in, the military in, I think it was Carter, towards the end of the presidency to try to, and it turned into that big fiasco. All the planes started crashing in the desert because of the
oh,
sandstorm.
I
Yeah,
don't remember that.
it, it was well, I paid more attention to it at the time because I was involved
Right.
in the service.
Daniel's making this interesting comment about Operation Ajax being the reason for the hostage crisis. That was back in '53, according to Wikipedia, the Iranian coup d'etat. But I don't know much about it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we put in the Shah of Iran as the leader or help him become the leader?
Oh, but that's what this was in '53. We meddled in their government.
Yeah, and kept meddling.
Yeah, but that's what we do. But that's what all the powerful China's doing it. Russia, like
Russia's
if a
doing it.
country is
Yep,
powerful enough to do it, they're doing it because it's smart. It's the smart thing to do. It like it's the stupid thing to do to not do it and let all your enemies do it.
true.
I'm seeing there's some Tommy drama in the comments, and I'm trying to weigh if I'm interested enough to
Tommy
interact.
drama.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw any or not.
This is an excellent question. These are the type of hard hitting questions we like on this show, Frank. Let's ponder this one.
I'm not lying. I don't. I try not to lie.
I think it depends on your motives and how sincere you are when you say, if I'm not mistaken, and if you know what you're doing or not.
That's why I said I'll have to go dig out my records.
Oh, from that time period?
Yeah,
To me, people that lie know they're lying. I don't know how you can accidentally lie. To me, it takes a conscious intent to deceive and to have two versions of reality and to deliberately to present one that's a little falsified and have the other one be your like hidden knowledge or asymmetrical information. To me, that all has to be, or at least when I do it, it's intentional. And because I'm really bad at it. And when I'm talking about when I do it, it's mostly in board games where you have to bluff and fool and lie and stuff. And that's where I really get to see it up close and break it down. The Chuck. Oh, I thought you were being funny. See, you
it's
come
my
over here and
fault
clown
now.
every day, so when you're being serious, we don't recognize it.
Oh, now it's
The
my
Chuck.
fault. Make me your king, and I'll fix all your problems.
King Chuck. We could change your name to King Chuck. Any other kings while we're giving them out
Might as well
or
just call it Woodchuck.
self-appointing them?
Woodchuck a surprise.
Oh Lord, I forgot where we were in the conversation, but
I know.
as
Me
you, this is an
too.
open panel, so feel free to come up
You
and
said
change your
something about
cards.
Tommy.
Oh yeah, they were talking about Tommy in the chat. Something on Talcott, maybe machine lies. I don't know. I'm sure I'll
I
hear
can't.
about it at some point
I
somewhere.
can't hardly keep track of it anymore.
Yeah, I go in and out of it. It's like with talk. I was into talk. Was it talk TV talk shows for a while, like Donahue and all them, and then I noticed when the trends start to shift to the more Geraldo, Jerry Springer type, and I would watch them every now and then when I felt like it and dip into it for that sensationalism. But I really preferred the more intellectual ones where they actually try to explore the topic, like Donahue did, and so I feel that way about kind of that level of the Panaverse. I can when I'm in the mood for something really trashy and dramatic and stimulate. It's like a Mexican soap opera. Sometimes they're just fun to watch. Welcome, Stephen. Speaking of kings,
Hello. Hello.
Well, welcome.
Hey, Chucky. Hey, Jeff. Uh, I heard you mention King, and I just came on cue.
That would
Something.
be
oh,
me.
As soon as he said King, I was just, I heard it somewhere and came over here.
what I don't know how much I want to get into this. I, I'll start with you. Tell us about the king thing. What's that about? I don't want to make assumptions.
Tell you about the King thing? Hello, Bex. I see Bex over in the chat room. I had a nice long chat with her last night, yesterday. The King thing, I think somebody crowned me at some point. I had called myself Stephen when I started my live streams, and then Saint Stephen, and that's who I was named after. Actually, I'm from an Irish Catholic family, so I was really named after Saint Stephen. So I called myself that, and then somebody just was saying that I handled things like a king and as a sovereign. So I think that's how it came about. I ended up changing my name to King Stephen, and also, I realized somebody let me know a while ago that in the panel channel verse, a lot of people don't like arrogance or if they perceive you as arrogance. So I just played it up a little bit because I think that they perceive me as a bit arrogant. So I had it. I just said to myself, well, this is kind of like giving myself steroids. It's like having them call me King Stephen. I'm gonna go with it instead of run away with it if they're gonna think that I'm arrogant or whatever just by my voice or how I come across. I'm gonna play it up to the hilt, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how it came about.
Okay. Well, because I know there's like the king movement in the part of the manosphere has
Oh,
the
I'm not
king.
part of any movement. I'm not part of anything like that. Completely independent. But I like when I come on their channels and they say Steven and I say, call me King Steven. And
Yeah.
they usually get upset right off the bat.
So some of it's kind of trolling or being subversive or playfully ironic.
What's that?
I said some of it seems to be like a form of trolling or being subversive,
Well, I
like
don't know if I'd say just
antagonistic to the things that antagonize you.
tongue in cheek humor. Like it's
Yeah.
not fully serious, but at the same time, I do have a harem. I do have, it's just fun. It's all in good fun. I have
Mhm.
a silly sense of humor, but anyway, hey there, big moose.
Moose.
I've eaten moose before. I've had moose steaks up north. Really delicious. They're better than T-bones.
What's going on, guys?
Just chatting. I liked your music stream this morning. I think that's a good idea.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So what's on anyone's mind? We were talking about the Iran thing earlier. Just catching up. I haven't really delved that deeply into it.
I had a good chat last night with Bexx talking about Klinefelter, Swires syndrome, and all that kind of stuff.
What syndrome?
Intersex, Klinefelter's, Swires, intersex type of things. It's
Oh,
actually
right.
more
Yeah.
common than people realize. There's somewhere with Swires, I think it's 1 in every 4,500 women that have that. So 1 in 4,500 women have gonads inside of their bodies and can't get pregnant by natural means. They have all these difficulties, and I don't know. Their chromosomes are different. They're not XX. They're XY. So there's a lot of interesting things when it comes to chromosomes, and that could also, we were talking about how that could also be related with people like Lib that might be gender confused. Maybe they should get their chromosomes checked because they're have scans done or something. There could be something different about people that feel like they're a different gender. They might be chromosomally different rather than XX or XY, straight woman, or you get what I'm
I
saying?
think in some cases they are, but they even have straight XXXY phenotypes or genotypes that also experience the just dysphoria or gender confusion or nonconformity too. So I don't know. Like I'm sure the studies are out there. I just don't know enough about the topic. But
Yeah.
people probably have looked into whether there's physiological markers for transgenderism. Hey, Cynthia. Yeah, and anyone's welcome to hop up. Happy Sunday. All that. Especially with adults, like somebody like Lib, he can identify with whatever. I can take him as seriously or not as I want, as long as I don't have to change anything I do or talk a certain way or lose my job over it.
Yeah, you don't want to get canceled over over saying something, but I just kind of find it interesting. It might be an explanation for some of the cases, at least.
Yeah, I think it's like just like with neurodivergence and mental health. I think it's a range of phenomena that it's not just one type of trance. Once they start studying it, there's going to be many different varieties and reasons why we see this phenomena.
What do you identify as, Moose? Do you a human or a moose? Or a fish, a big fish?
Oh no, I'm actually pretty conservative, more middle conservative, and I don't align with most of that nonsense. But I also don't like demean people who think they're like cats and dogs and weird shit. Um,
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that ends up taking off societally. Like we just can't have a society built around people who think they're cats and
well, I
monkeys.
personally went to school with someone, and in the class, it was a college class, and every day it was disrupted by this girl who came in wearing these cat ears, and she had to be called cat or kitty or something. And it was, I mean, this is no joke. It was like, it was just, it was so annoying. Like, you pay to go to school, and then you have to sit there and deal with the retardation. It's not right.
Did like if she had just shown up with the ears and quietly participated in class, would it have been as much of a problem? Is it that she made a
Never,
big deal about
ever a problem at all, because if you never make it my problem, then it's not my problem.
it? Yeah,
The,
yes, that yes,
Was she
exactly.
meowing during class though? Ever?
what's up?
Was she
Welcome back.
meowing during class, and did she ever have to stop and use the litter box in the corner or something? Or
Yeah,
I don't know.
this was before it really got okay to be like wild and crazy.
Oh, okay.
This is like 10,
But they
12
did
years
push
ago.
it. Like it is like kind of how much can we get away? How far can we push this identity bit?
Hey, Bex. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Stephen, Jeff, Chuck, and Moose. Nice to see you all.
Welcome, welcome.
what about if it's not going to take off? What about, do you think then that the people out there, the adults, that think they're babies, that's all just cosplay for them?
That's a sub community of the kink community. It's called ABDL, Adult Baby Diaper Lovers. It's a new fetish that I see cropping up more and more. Fetishes run in trends, and the latest trend, when they crest, you tend to see more and more of it on social media and people push it in public. They had that one video of that like 70-year-old man that he was a sissy porn. He dressed in a diaper. He went to the mall and he would interview people and tell them that his mistress is making him come to the mall and talk to people in his diaper. And it was so uncomfortable. Like, if that's your kink, there's a consent element to that. Don't take that shit out in public and involve the rest of us in he was like living out his fetish at the mall while he's talking to people, because he was in communication with his mistress and she was giving him all these tasks to do in public with other people. That kind of shit to me is crossing the line. I mean, I don't want adults in diapers in public in general, but if they want to have private clubs where people gather and do that, or house parties or whatever, I'm okay with that.
I agree. If Hank wants to do that in private, I mean, it's none of our business. I'm just kidding. I don't think Hank does. I don't know if Hank does that at all. But
part of the joke was that you chose Hank.
Yeah.
Hey, and then in Baja, California, there's a guy who, like, we have Taco Tuesday where there's a live band that plays. Everybody goes down, has a good time. Well, there's this guy called Stinky Kenny, right? And he shows up in women's underwear, and he like literally like that's all he's wearing, and he's dancing on the dance floor, and he's like, it smells like he hasn't taken a shower in months. And it's like people like that, like they're starving for attention, that they will literally go to the most absurd lengths to get attention, that it makes me just want to kick them in the face and drag them off the floor.
I would just laugh at it.
Yeah, hilarious. I mean, you think at first like it's funny, right? Because you're 20 feet away, but then you get like within 5 feet of him, and his dong's like flying around, and then you smell him.
Oh
you get,
my
like,
god! How this is not in public, right? This is like at a club or something. How do they get away with it? It's
because
that
it's outdoor in the middle of Mexico.
I'm from New Orleans, and even I have a line of what I would not want innocent people and kids to see in public.
That's the thing. It is doing harm. It's subjecting people that are innocent to something. It's traumatizing other people when you're taking it in the public that way.
I think like some of it's okay if people want to walk around in a dog collar or a harness or something.
Diapers.
If you take it beyond a certain level of taste, it becomes participatory at that point, and I think requires some kind of consent from the public. It's not something you just go inflict on random strangers at that level, and that's what I see being pushed. But this I'll post the article if I can find it. This debate has been running in the gay community since Stonewall. Like, this is nothing new. It's just now making its way into the public with all the new issues coming up.
I was wondering if I saw someone leading someone around with a dog collar, I would ask if that was a companion animal. Do they have their certification, right? Because you're not allowed to bring animals even on leashes into most public places, right?
I would ask if they needed. I would ask them if they needed a ride to the vet. Sorry.
I watched some videos from the 60s back in the like the hippie days, and they had music festivals with little naked children running around, and all the adults were naked, and I thought even that was weird for like how is that even, how are the hippies even getting to do that in society? I mean, I'm sure it was private property and stuff, but it was
probably, or a commune, pictures from a commune, nudist colony or something like that. Nude beach.
But there is this ideology on the left from that community that children are naturally sexual, and they're like the myth that childhood innocence is a myth, and they're born sexualized, and that natural sexuality should just be allowed to emerge whenever it emerges at whatever age.
Some
Sounds
people
very
think Santa
Kinsey.
Claus is real too, Jeff.
The
Yeah,
what?
sounds very Kinsey influence to me.
And Foucault.
Kinsey
Yeah.
and
Core theory.
it's their way of it's their foot in the door for grooming children, basically. That's what it sounds like
Well,
to me.
and
And it sounds very
this is
creepy.
what, yeah. And I would say I've met a gay person that knows that they were influenced by an elder, like a gay man who believes that they were higher, had a higher sexuality as a teen with their friends. It was as a preteen, whatever, the boys sharing their magazines or whatever. And because he actually was driven to exercise sexuality from that age, he actually had, caught the eye of a gay man. It was all straight stuff they were looking at. And it essentially feels like he was turned gay at 12 years old. That if that event hadn't happened, if he hadn't been more sexual than his friends and been curious and had that curiosity satiated by a man, that he doesn't think he'd be gay. He doesn't begrudge it. He doesn't think he was abused into it, but he does think he was groomed. So I think when you assume everybody's born away, you don't look for the trauma that might have turned some people that way. And in essence, you are blanketing everyone together under. So when you double down on it with research from scientists that may be homosexuals or maybe, MAPS, right? Like, and I'm not trying to say homosexuals are MAPS, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
MAPS happen. Yeah, MAPS happen
population.
in both homosexual and heterosexual environments, right? So I think that there's some level of that ends up, when we take these Kinsey studies and double down like that, we're never looking for the trauma, right? And that, I'll just end on this. That gentleman would say he's not traumatized anymore. You know what I mean? He never was actually traumatized. It's just was as he tries to sort out his own life, that's what he sees as pivotal. But some people, if it happened even younger and you don't have memories and you do have a firewall, sort of that blocks you from these memories, then one would assume likely it is traumatic, and is there something to this that has this screaming narcissism, this pride to the point of hubris, where people are screaming, we were oppressed, but it's like, yeah, but everybody was sexually oppressed. Nobody did any public displays of sexuality, like.
Yeah, that's a
So,
good point.
yeah. And I just think that with it, you end up with these extreme personalities representing a group, essentially,
Yeah, especially if it's a group that tends to push the limits of self-expression anyway. And if the self that's being expressed is the narcissistic self or some version of that, then that's what you're going to get. If it's not like some authentic higher version of the self that has something more than just, to me, it's all, I don't have a problem with drag or kink or anything like that as an art form or as cosplay or anything like that. But I think they try to found their identity on it. And I don't even have a problem with that if it's a subculture. Like within your subculture, that's your identity. But then they try to normalize and socialize those identities, which I also don't have a problem with because I do the same thing with mine. But for some reason, maybe it's the sexual element, I think there's just a higher risk in doing it for some populations or for some groups with specific agendas. I don't know, but I don't have the power to stop them either. Apparently, they're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, I think I'll just say this one thing. I don't want to dominate the conversation. There's many brilliant minds up here, so. But I was going to say that I think people don't realize how easily sexuality can be conditioned, right? So if you bark in your lover's ear every time you make him or her come, right, you will get to a point, especially I'm speaking to you men, right? Like, you will, you could walk past your lover in the future, bark in their ear and make them come, right? So when people look at what arouses them, what arouses someone often is pleasing their mate, right? Like, doesn't matter if it's a dom sub role, there's still that goes in both directions, right? So I think people don't realize that being naughty when you're naughty is part of being naughty. And if you actually start creating your entire sexuality around something that actually just turns you on, you're kind of you're just conditioning a response. It's just an added layer of a condition. It doesn't actually. You could condition anything into sexuality, like Pavlov's dogs.
I was just going to say that when you said about the barking, it made me think of Pavlov's dogs, and I was going to say Pavlov just started pitching a tent in his grave when he heard you say that. Barking.
Well, I think that's part of the theory of childhood development anyway. We have these tendencies, are these, oh, hang on, I'm going to switch to my headphones. We have a roommate moving out today, and it's getting very noisy in here.
There's no background noise to me, but I also don't have earphones on, so I don't hear as much.
Tell them to respect the stream and cool that shit off.
Pavlov's orgasm, we just coined there.
Pavlov-gasms. Pavlov-gasms.
Yeah. Okay. Am I back?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, barking and coming, I guess, is the topic on
The bark come.
or Sunday afternoon. Thanks for being with us.
I'm not gonna lie, I do like this conversation better than the talks of Israel, but
Me too.
but I'm not here to pick the topic.
I know more about this than I know about Israel.
I think we all might.
You know what I know about Israel? It's not America. It's not in the U.S. It's not my business.
Some people would argue otherwise, but I don't know if I would open that conversation. Hi, Sean.
Some people would argue that Israel owns America, but I think that woman that Big Moose knew, the cat woman, just ran away when she heard this conversation about the dogs and the coming and the barking and stuff.
Can we just take a moment and hope that
she ran up a tree?
I hope that Israel has record number of orgasms today, the people of Israel. I wish that upon you.
I hope that for everybody on the planet. That's my wish.
Take a moment to think about what I was saying, though, like going to class in a higher education facility and having to deal with that low level intellect. Like, I mean, it's just appalling. Like, you should be able to walk into a classroom and just learn whatever you're supposed to learn. You shouldn't have to deal with all this strange crap that comes along with it.
Moose, I'm going to tell you something that might blow your mind, but when I was younger, about 20, 30 years ago, you actually could. And in fact, they encouraged it and they supported it.
Well, Moose, did you ever try like putting a cardboard box down to see if she'd crawl in it and cuddle up? I mean, cats seem to really love boxes for some reason.
You could run her through a little obstacle course like they do on YouTube.
No, because I was too afraid that if I would have said anything to her at all, it would have been taken like straight to the
knee. Your instincts are very good, way better than mine.
She didn't try to scratch you with her nails or something, like reach out and claw you.
I could see victim straight across your face. Like I could see, like I didn't do my homework because my other dog ate it, and like you know what I mean. Like, anything is definitely not going to be her responsibility, even though it is. Like it's yours, you know. So I'm not getting involved in that, Steven.
That's that collective.
I think I would have teased her. I would have teased her. Go ahead.
Yo, King Steven, I'm interested in your life. So you have a harem? Are you like a cult leader with a harem? That's pretty fun.
Harem. I call it a harem.
What a door.
I wouldn't say I'm a cult leader, but I do have a harem. I have a kingdom. So every king needs a harem. I do have a lot of women. My channel's not a sausage fest. It's mainly women.
What do you talk about in your channel?
Why don't you go to his channel and find out? Like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I just well, I mean, yeah, you should just come over sometime and find out. It's the Sanity Machine
Lately, he's
channel.
been doing some very excellent commentary on the panelverse and the panel drama, and he did what 12 18 hours. How long did you go yesterday?
I'm not sure, 17 hours,
Yeah,
maybe 18,
that's the
something like
longest
that.
stream I've seen yet.
That
Personally,
was a short one from my channel.
wow.
Yeah.
So,
Steven's done 144-hour stream.
did you sleep?
My longest was 27
Yeah,
hours.
I did sleep. I
You
slept
just
on
like
stream. I just kept it going. I didn't mute or anything. You could hear me sleeping, talking in my sleep, snoring. It was like the Truman Show. It was all,
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I like it's to me it's no different than Liam having a polycule. Or there's been other people in the panelverse that have talked about wanting harems.
Well, the Muslims allow that. You're allowed to have 4 wives in
Yeah,
Islam.
I think it's kind of a postmodern thing anyway, and especially on the internet, social media. It's easier to have one. I don't know how much of it carries over in life.
well, it's ancient though. Actually, I would say it's ancient rather than postmodern. It's been around since the early days, where the powerful men that were women found attractive, they would share the powerful men, and they would, they'd have 20, 50, 100 wives in some cases, or just a harem where they weren't married at all. And they might even return to that these days, because a lot of the men these days a lot of the women don't find them attractive, and a lot of the guys are just settling for being incels for life. So there's like a small group of men at the top that a lot of the population of women are sharing. There's a lot of women that are dating one guy, and they know that he's dating or sleeping with 10, 12, 15 other women. So it is really happening in real life beyond just social media.
Well, and the byproduct of that would be gayness, right? Like, I'm not saying that gayness wouldn't have been there in the first place, but the growth of gayness, right? Like, because you'd have 80% of the men, just say 20% of the men are what the majority of straight women are going for. Then the other men,
we're like the
would
backup
naturally tend
or
to
the
gayness.
It's hard for me to picture that though, because like I never had that problem, and I'm not attracted to men in that way. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to put myself in somebody's shoes that would.
You think Bexx would drive the incels to become gay based on not being able to have any sex or get any relationships or any partners at all, or do you think it would drive them into diapers?
I mean, dude,
Well,
sorry.
in some cases, that's the same thing. In some cases, that's actually the same thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's crossover as well. I guess there would be.
And
There's
I don't
some
mean
gay-
as role play. I just mean that some people do see being a bottom. One of the achievements of lifelong bottomness is lack of rectal control.
Oh yeah, this might be
Oh,
the
damn.
time for that little warning for people that don't like these sorts of topics. It looks like they're happening now.
Mhm.
Go get your coffee, get a refill, whatever.
But not to knock gay men in that goal. I mean, it's a goal of runners as well. Runners' diarrhea is an achievement for long distance runners, right? You've loosened your bowels to the point of actually just, So I'm just saying it's not just a gay. Yeah. There was a guy, I think in 2020 there was a guy who placed 8th in the Olympics in a long distance running, and he was a contender for the first. And the commentary on it was that he had runner's diarrhea, and that had actually just, you just run through it, especially in a competition, right? But that was probably why he placed 8th instead of first. And although it was a disappointment that it had happened because he didn't get his gold, it's still an achievement in running.
He should have worn a diaper, is what they were saying. He should have worn a diaper, even without a fetish. He should have diapered up before the marathon.
That's disgusting.
How do they do it? What's the common practice for that? Do they diaper up?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we can, we're just this is how we're going to make some money. I mean, screw bobbleheads from the Panelverse, right? We need to actually develop like Speedo style diapers for runners because, the other ones have too much. You could get wind in them. It'll slow you down,
I was not expecting to wake up to this.
Do you want to go back to Israel? Do we need to go back to talking about Israel? We can do that.
No, we do that plenty on here. We were so burnt out already.
Have you heard of free bleeding? I'm going to post a link in the chat. There's something that
what's
there was
funny?
a feminist
put
marathon
it in
runner.
the private, and I could put it.
Okay.
Baja 1000, the people that race that, they wear diapers, and they also have bottles to pee in, and then they also have catheters. So they're all in on it. So next thing you know, get them a dog suit, and they'll be in on it too.
Dog suit.
Guys, what do you hear about what's his name? Diddy Combs scandal there?
Diddy?
Yeah, what's up with that? I don't know much. Is he gonna get arrested or something, or is he hiding? Is my internet bad?
No, I don't know if I have an opinion on it. I don't know enough about. Is he on the?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard much about it neither. To be fair, I need to look into it.
Oh,
It looks interesting though, because it's all sexual assault and I heard he's hiding or something.
Cynthia knows about P. Diddy. Is she coming up?
Oh,
I asked the
Cynthia,
same question at the asked the same question at the beginning of a panel yesterday, so I'm not the best to answer it all.
Seems like there's so much going on all of a sudden. It was kind of quiet for a few weeks. That link took me to some Washington gun law, how your doctor will disarm you.
Oh,
what, instead of free bleeding?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Sorry.
I was going to say, on the note of free bleeding, I went to a comedy workshop when I was doing stand-up comedy, and we were looking at doing things differently, like not writing a set. I didn't write a set for this one. I actually just went off on this whole, I wrote a whole little shtick. And part of it was, I'll find the piece of paper one day. It was hilarious. But in Canada, they had just taken the taxes off tampons, GST and PST off tampons. So part of my joke was that what people didn't know about Trudeau was that women all around the country had, in protest, gone with ancient traditions and protested and walked around free bleeding for months. And that was Trudeau's way of actually of honoring their protest. Was by taking the taxes off GST. It's not that funny, I know, when it's not told in a whole set. Cynthia's here to answer. Hi,
What's up, Cynthia?
Oh my gosh.
What's that?
Diddy. What
Did
the
he
heck?
or did he?
Diddy. I don't know. But yesterday I saw a video of a gentleman. I don't remember his name, but he was arrested in 2018 for shooting in the Trump Hotel. And when the police were interrogating him, he kept saying, "I'm a sex slave for Diddy and Cassie, and I'm a sex slave for them." And they were like, "Okay, well, we're not interested in that." But he was saying, yeah, he traffics women and he brings in liquid cocaine. And that's what he really does on his private jets. Like, he told everything, but the cops kept saying, "Listen, we're not interested in that." But that interview was in 2018, and
Do
now
they know where to find this guy now?
Yeah, he's in jail. He's arrested. He's in jail.
Oh,
yeah. And it's just interesting that in 2024, everything that he said in his police interrogation is kind of makes sense. So this is an interesting.
So he's like the latest celebrity with the hidden sex cult thing behind him.
Well, apparently he had bugged every single room in his house, even the showers, and had put videos in every room. So he has dirt on everybody, and that's
And
how
that's kind of what Epstein and them did, huh?
that makes sense. So he hasn't technically been charged with anything, so I don't think he's on the run, but I heard from other content creators, he's really, like, anytime they see him, he has a nervous, like, he's always just pacing and he looks really stressed out. So it does seem like the walls are closing in on him. Is he in New
Orleans? He used to live in New Orleans, I think.
Did he? I have no idea.
I get him so confused. He's the same thing as Puff Daddy, right? That's the same.
That he is, yes, he's Puff
Yeah,
Daddy.
I think so
it's just really crazy.
Yeah, he's black.
It's crazy though that this is everybody kind of knew of his parties, his freak offs and stuff, and nobody talked about it. Now it's coming out.
How did it come out? Because if he's been keeping it going for this long, what finally broke it?
So he had a girlfriend for over 10 years. Her name was Cassie, and they broke up, and she filed a lawsuit against him about 6 months ago, and he settled the lawsuit the next day, which is so odd that he didn't try to fight it or anything. And she accused him of sex trafficking, forcing her to have relations.
So he pissed off the girlfriend, and she
told. And yeah, I see. And I live here in Dallas, so rumor has been about TD Jakes for a long time. And people down here actually aren't talking about it too much because TD Jakes is down here with us, but it's always been words about him. So
but he was
turned into a new conspiracy.
He was the manager of Justin Bieber, wasn't he? He didn't do anything with Justin Bieber.
Yes.
Oh, Canadians, watch out! Y'all are not safe.
And Usher. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
No. That was it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you guys ever wonder, though, that when you consider how some of the narratives online are sown about people, do you ever wonder if some of this is like celebrity long game BS network, like marketing?
So, I think the celebrities themselves mark like just to create PR for their careers,
just to create drama, just to get their names out there. I mean, with P. Diddy, since Cynthia knows this 6-year-old crime link, unless the whole shooting was staged and that's all BS, then I'm not saying that would be the case for everything, because that sounds like a super long game. And, someone is actually sitting in jail just so P. Diddy gets his name out later. No, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Okay,
but sometimes I wonder.
Remember the shooting? Do y'all remember, like, early in the 90s or in the 90s, there was a shooting that him and Jennifer Lopez were at, but one of his artists ended up getting the rap for it, and he went to prison for over 10 years. And then he wasn't even an American citizen. I forget where he was from, but he's in the other country now, and he can't come back. Well, the victim of that shooting, because she didn't die, she has come out and said it was really Diddy that shot her. And she did tell the detectives back in the day, and nobody did anything. And she said that she was willing to lose her eye to take a bullet out to prove that it was his gun. But somebody else has already been convicted of the crime and did their time. So double jeopardy. Diddy cannot be charged with this, but she did come out earlier or last month and saying, I've been trying to tell everybody from the beginning it was really Diddy that shot me. But apparently Diddy has so much dirt on people that nobody really messes with him. But it looks like when Cassie filed that lawsuit, it just opened the floodgates for other people to come forward and talk about it. One of his producers has now come out and said, yes, Diddy raped me too.
And that is our celebrity gossip segment for today, folks.
So this could change the rap and the hip hop industry could be totally changed because P Diddy's the big boy in that industry, isn't he?
Well,
The whole
here's the
industry.
thing.
I
Everybody's
see
saying that
great
they've
make
always, everybody's saying they've all known about it. Like this hasn't been a very well kept secret in Hollywood.
Everyone said the
It's
same
just
thing about
that-
Epstein.
yeah, it's just
And
that
what's his
us,
face? Harvey, whoever from Hollywood.
Weinstein,
Yeah, they say that about all these guys.
that is just
Even Trump, they say that.
now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been talk about the Tupac and Biggie too, and it's just crazy because you can look at these people and think, as a young person, oh, they're so successful, they're so rich, it only makes sense. But as you get older, you realize it was a house of lies. And are the stars, are they really the ones trafficking in narcotics? Because their planes aren't searched by customs. They come in and out of private airports.
Corrupt celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's a handful. It's
Celebrities gone wild.
just statistically. Yes, celebrities go.
Celebrities go.
I don't.
Famous
there's
though.
probably not a mass movement of celebrities doing it.
Well, famous though, the root famous it comes from is same root as family, right? And so fame, to be famous, to become famous is to be part of their mafia potentially. I mean, there's a lot of famous people, so there would be tiers to it as well. But I don't think that's. I would even bet that even the plane companies themselves could be involved if the celebrities were
the pilots.
I think we should all become famous and find out.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't think I would do good in prison.
I don't think I would either. I would totally fuck it up somehow.
The Addams Family. Da-da-da-da.
You've always heard like fame.
The Addams Family.
You know, you want fame cost. I don't want to pay that price for fame.
Yeah, I don't either. Like I'm even worried about this get too big where I can't go to the grocery store.
That's bizarre too when people recognize you.
Well, they bang them in, I heard, with celebrities so that your butthole wouldn't want to pay the price of getting famous because
There's
they
audio
get gangbanged.
Depends on who you are, though. I mean, not speaking on for myself, I'm not interested in that. For certain.
They call it paying your dues, and it's all gravy. They call it gravy after that, but yeah, it has.
So did y'all keep up with what happened at Nickelodeon? How from Josh and Drake came out and was saying that he was being raped by the vocal coach. I'm sorry, from Nickelodeon. Did y'all hear that?
No,
it's huge.
Yeah,
it's huge right now. Well, okay, so y'all remember the Corey Haim and Feldman? It's the same vocal coach that worked with them. Is the same one that worked with.
Are they famous? Is it somebody we would know?
Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. They were actors in the 90s.
Oh no, I remember them, but the coach.
Oh well, Brian Peck is his name, but who's like, oh wow, that's that coach. I mean, how do you really recognize?
Yeah, I wouldn't know him if I saw him on the bus.
Yeah, but so anyways, after he was convicted of what he did to Drake Bell, he was actually able to get a job at Disney. But after Disney found out, they fired him as well.
So they didn't know when they hired him.
Right. No. There was actually 3 of those type men that worked on the Nickelodeon set for Nickelodeon during that period of time.
Yeah, there's a documentary there. Is it on Amazon or Netflix?
Quiet on the Set.
Yeah, well, that's good. I guess there's more people now trying to fight back. It was probably more common back in the day. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah. You think do y'all think YouTube will ever be like that?
I was thinking the opposite. Like YouTube removes the need for sets and large production staff and you could just do it from your bedroom by yourself. So you don't have, there's no casting couch or like studio politics or anything. So it's kind of an environment removed from that or that transcends that.
those complications.
But I agree for the organic YouTuber, but what I don't think people realize is just like the publishing houses, the media corporations, are the same people that set this up, right? So, and one of the things with social media, and especially what we saw moving into 2020, I know many people use this for research long before that. But what I would say is that a lot of people didn't watch TV, and never really watched TV, and the program itself, I don't like to talk about things like I know who's in charge or whatever, but what I'm trying to say is the publishing houses, the media corporations, right? They want the information has to get out there. So social media influencers, guaranteed there's a media aspect of this where there are productions 100%, right? Like that there is a subset or a master set of YouTube that is fully produced, right? Set up
The
to be
big
produced,
channels,
to
for
influence
sure.
people. Yeah.
They
So
get promoted. They don't get millions of subscribers just organically by working
Right.
hard.
Yeah.
So two things. Quiet on the Set. The opening scene was a YouTube content creator who actually started reporting this 3 years ago. She started doing videos about what goes on at the set. So she was actually the opening scene of that documentary. And second thing is the other content creators that I work for, one of them has been approached by a big name media personality and was asked, hey, if you sign with me, I will help build your page to big. I will make sure you get all the interviews. I'll make sure you're the person that can break the stories first. But he declined to take that offer. But they do reach out to content creators trying to make with them.
And they can uplift it. This is the perfect platform where they can uplift that voice and puppet them, whether that person chooses to take a deal or not, right? Yeah, so it's interesting. There is an aspect of potentially selling your soul with no rituals. I mean, just in a metaphorical sense, let's say getting greedy for subs, greedy for money, exercising from that base, from that
kind of
base
audience
of greed.
capture and selling out.
Yeah. So one of the content creators, he was doing a story on T.I. and T.I.'s team reached out to him, gave him information, and then made him sign an NDA that he couldn't say where he got the stuff from or where, who gave it to him. He just says someone on the team, but he was able to break his stories, and it built his page up super quick.
Is T.I. somebody I'm supposed to know?
He's a rapper in Atlanta.
There's a lot of crossover with rap and social media, eh? Like rap got even bigger with rap battles and being able to do those things. Yeah. And that's interesting.
I almost think they need each other in order to, because YouTube, you can control mainstream media. Like if you want to do a story about Diddy and Diddy's affiliated with the radio station, obviously you can't do that story but if you're a YouTube content creator and nobody's over you, you can tell whatever story you want to tell. And rappers are starting to see that, and they're starting to use bloggers. But it's also an opportunity for bloggers to get scammed. I've seen a couple of them lose their pages because they thought that they were giving their working with somebody mainstream, and they ended up getting their pages. Like the mainstream people, like these scammers took their pages.
I wonder how many black rappers at that level are Kleinfelters or Squires secretly.
Mm-hmm.
Or what?
We were talking earlier about different intersexism conditions, and since so many people, see all these celebrities at the top as inverts or reversos, as an homage to Satan. What people don't realize is there's actually intersex conditions. Intersexism is diagnosed by anomalous genitalia at birth or through development, as well as certain characteristics of people's genetics, right? So, it's not just, say, a micropenis that's, going to delineate it. It might be also your body type looks like Klinefelter's. So you could later be diagnosed with something like Klinefelter's. But what people don't realize is that, only anomalous genitalia is being diagnosed as intersexism conditions. And even those people aren't necessarily being put through an electron microscope to figure out what they are. It's still just done old diagnostic style. So there's people that pass in the world who've never been diagnosed with intersexism that actually likely are intersex, and I think that's part of what's happening.
Is that the hermaphrodites? Is that what you're talking about?
It's what they used. Yeah, they used to call them hermaphrodites. Hermaphrodites are people who allegedly have both genders, right? Like, so my dad, as a doctor, was trained to see a hermaphrodite as a unicorn, like as somebody who appears occasionally, like as not so mythological, but as a fact. But as he was schooled, as education changed over his career, he learned about intersexism instead. Although if you were to look at huevedoches, which exist in the Dominican Republic, huevedoches are little boys or little girls that at puberty turn into little boys, right? So, become men, essentially. So that being said, if those little girls have closed hymens through their life, and that's just normal to be born with a closed hymen until you hit puberty, then that makes sense. But if not, you can't just have somebody who has a vagina that turns into a penis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so there may actually be hermaphrodites on the planet that, a whole group of them that people just are grouping as a form of intersexism. But in essence, in our Western science, they're saying no, hermaphrodism was a misunderstanding. Now we have genetic, a better understanding of genetics, and they're all typically they're all either an additional chromosome like XXY, XYY. It's almost all on the Y. If it's on the X chromosome, it's a deletion. Just learned yesterday, which actually would be probably trying to make an X look like a Y. Anyways, my point is the only kind that happens that actually isn't an extra chromosome that I've found is what's called Swyer syndrome, which is an androgyne insensitivity syndrome in an XY chromosome. And these XY women, through fertility treatment and birth control pills, can develop to the point of having babies, right? So they're not women. You can't tell them they're not women. They psychosocially identify as women. They look like women. They've been treated like women their whole life, but they're fertility dependent, and they probably do lack certain instincts, right? So one of the reasons why a lot of these women at the top in Hollywood and stuff may have nannies and also may need extra help is because actually inherently in the XY Swyer women is a different kind of instinct that's more learned than it is more nature than nurture, and they struggle with it, right?
When I worked at the clubs, one of the entertainers was a hermaphrodite, and she had a woman body, but she had a man's voice and she had the mannerisms of a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So probably an intersex condition or somebody who had transitioned in some ways,
No, she was no. She was definitely, she didn't have a surgery for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's where these Swyer syndrome, sorry, and I'll land on this. A perfect androgyne insensitivity syndrome yields a woman, a phenotypical woman with very little body type, or very little body fat, no underarm hair, no pubic hair, stuff like that. But the, level 3 versus level 5, or even level 1, you could end up with people like that as well, right? That are
small titties,
somewhere in between.
Yeah, she had small. She had a 6-pack. She was zero body fat on her.
Oh, weird.
So you're saying loads of trans people could be that? What you're saying, Bexx?
Well, that's where I am saying that. Yeah, there are some people out there. Like I hope he doesn't mind. We'll pick Lib because he's been here and it was here yesterday, right? And I know he says I'm very masculine, have a lot of body hair. Like, I mean, physically he looks all of these things. Like he admits to this as there could be the case that if we had an electron microscope, we could go look, and Lib could be XXY and XYY. He could also just be an XY who has, where there isn't a biological marker like that. But maybe we're not looking deep enough either. So I'm just saying that, yeah, it is the possibility that someone could 100% pass and be typified as an XX or XY at birth, and yet actually have an extra chromosome that doesn't cause them to be anomalous enough to be classified. And one thing that I would say that supports this is this idea of the normalization of micropenises. Now, and I don't want to say normalization, I'm just saying we never really heard of them, right? Now, I'm sure that we could say, of course, they always existed, and those aren't the men that are running around the world, trying to bed women in the bar or trying to bed other men in the bar. They feel insecure. They feel, I'm putting this on, this is how people with a normal sized genitalia might be able to say, well, that's why you never heard of them, but when you change the definition of something, that's that, like if you crime can go down because you decriminalize something, not just because you got better at catching criminals, right? So some of these definitions, some of these acceptances of, like, say, the average penis size and incorporating micro penises in as men changes the average penis size and now normalizes potentially a form of intersexism that nobody wanted to go in and delve into, because there's so many. Why would you actually start telling someone there's anything different with them when all they have is a smaller penis, right? So I'm just saying that yeah, I do think that that intersexism could have just been they could have just branched. It could be becoming more dominant in the culture, and ergo the definition of it just widened the statistics of other things that would have been anomalous in the past, if that makes sense. I hope it does.
Yeah. No, I heard that chemicals could affect your hormones. That could, like, a PFAS chemicals could affect humans' fertility. There's loads of chemicals out in the environment that could be affecting our health, and plastics, and I heard PFAS is one of them.
Yeah, I'm sure
that could play a role in our micro penis as well.
You should pee slow, not fast. Pee slow.
Take your time, no rush. Yeah, and they don't talk about macro clips. That's another thing that no one talks about.
They should.
Yeah, I think they should too.
Let's talk about macro.
Is that where the women are, like, they can't have anything inserted in them, like it's too painful? Is that what that is? The micro clip?
No, the macro clip is huge. It's like a penis-sized clip. It's big.
Yeah, macro clit would probably be someone who has a clitoris the size of a micro penis.
Oh.
But interesting that you would bring that up, that that the pain associated with things inside for some women might be an aspect of intersexism. Might be something to do with less elasticity because of the genetic differences. That there is. I think that's a key question.
There's some intersex born without a vagina at all opening. They have no vagina at all. It looks okay from the outside. I covered a story like that on my channel. They have labia and a clitoris, but they have no vaginal opening or tunnel at all inside.
And that's where that's where I learned. I looked it up yesterday with Stephen. Learned that that's an XX chromosome, very rare. Okay, like most XX alterations on the XX chromosome have to do with they're bold about it. They'll be like, if a trans man stays on hormones while they're pregnant with a baby girl, that baby girl will end up adapted, like have a different characteristics because of the testosterone that their father took while they were pregnant. I'm being PC with my language here. That being said, though, almost all intersexism conditions are on the XY chromosome. And when Stephen introduced me to this idea of this woman with this other condition, which that's the one that's 1 in 4,500 women. 1 in 4,500 women don't have an opening at all. It's not even a closed hymen. But that's a lot of people. That's not rare.
I've never heard of it.
There's a podcast about a doctor, and there's several women that came on the podcast anonymously and talked about it. Like, they can't even use tampons or anything. Like, it's too painful. And I had never heard of it either.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go to therapy.
Exactly. This one condition, that might be a variation of this condition, because that is on the XX chromosome. But I was doing, and I'm not a PhD in this stuff. But But what I would say is they talk about it being deletions. There's deletions on the X chromosome. And I haven't seen a lot of this deletion language in intersexism. So when you think about deletion and you look at when you had to match up those chromosomes, in high school biology, it was hard to do. They didn't all look very much alike. It's just kind of like a best guess. But the XY, when you look at that Y chromosome, I feel like that the XX chromosome woman that we looked at yesterday that has no vagina, we didn't look at her genitalia. We just watched a video. That's when I think that deletion sort of is it is a scientific adaptation trying to make an X chromosome behave like a Y. And it's really hard to alter XX. This is all if it, yeah.
She wouldn't show me her genitalia. I did try.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I did ask.
You left some comments for her?
I did ask
Do
her.
you have an OnlyFans?
If it'd be okay to have a peek, but I mean, also there's some with a giant clitoris, like the size of an arm. It's like gigantism of the clitoris.
Hangs out
like roast beef.
Okay.
Like when I worked at the clubs, I didn't realize that all women look so different.
Don't we like all? Isn't it something like we all start out female, or the basic archetype of the zygote or embryo in female, and then the male develops from this female basis that we all start from, and so there could be complications during the stages of that development that cause kind of these anomalies where it's.
Yeah, I think that they have presented science sort of, so that's sort of like our layman's view of things. But I would say that some of that is backwards inferences based on the fact that you can that a swire woman can be born at all, right? So if you can completely, if one can completely alter by flooding a uterus with look up free martins in animals, and you'll find that this is animal husbandry. Right? That this is done in cows, right? So when you think about, if somebody's doing this to people, then basically what I could do is I could find out I'm pregnant with a little boy and I want a little girl. I've got like 9 boys already. Someone can actually give me injections or pills. I can take male hormones, right? Like or have my uterus flooded with testosterone. Flooded with female hormones to the point of causing the testosteronal system to not engage and not uptake any testosterone at 8 weeks of development. And so that being said, I would say, Jeff, that it's backwards science deducing. Well, if we all must start girls, if we can turn a boy into a girl, and we can't turn a girl into a boy. You know what I mean? Like that you can't do the opposite. You can't flood the XX chromosome with male hormones and produce a boy that actually psychosocially looks like identifies and phenotypically looks like, you can't, they just doesn't work that way. You can masculinize an XYY, you can hypermasculinize, just like you can hyperfeminize the XY. So
well,
that's my thoughts.
I wish we had lived.
I'm glad I'm me.
Me too. Can you tell us about more about the Arby's roast beef, Cynthia?
Like when I started working at the club and I started seeing nudity everywhere, I thought, well, mine doesn't look like that. Well, mine doesn't look like that. I realized everyone looks different, and I was like, ugh.
So what is Israel still okay? What's our read now?
I know everybody's talking about that today too.
It's making me miss Israel conversation.
But is Israel having lots of orgasms today? That's what we really wish for Israel and the whole world.
Do they have Arby's in Israel? Is that kosher?
I don't know.
Arby's roast beef, beef and cheddars.
I guess y'all have never seen it, but it does, y'all. If y'all ever see it, you'll be like, she's right.
No, but that's interesting about the trans issue, because I think that maybe one reason why there's increase in trans is because of chemicals in the environment, like all the plastic and PFAS. That could be one cause. Or it could just be social acceptance.
Is there an increase though? I think it's just more as people become aware that that's an option, that they become aware can apply to themselves. Before, like because I really think in my generation, a lot of what we call gay would be trans now. I think gay a lot like we all called it gay because it all looked like the same thing. But when you look at it, there were like different subtypes of it, and I think one of those subtypes is what people are now calling trans. So I think the categories change, new categories emerge, and as people find out about them, they feel them. And so I think some of it's that. The plastics thing, I would need a little more something to go
Yeah,
on.
look into PFAS. It's the stuff that non-stick pans and your waterproof coats. It's
Is
a plastic.
trans?
It's a thing. It's a chemical that's quite bad. It
I don't
causes
know
cancer.
I don't know if there is an increase in trans other than awareness and identification. Like, but actually, if there's a biological basis to it, I don't know that there's a biological increase in whatever that is. It's probably at the same
Trans
rate
is
it's always been.
trans is trending though on Google. There's a trans trend. I mean,
Yeah,
it is a
I call
trend.
Liv a transgender because he's not medical trans and like when you know it when you're 3 years old and you get the surgery and all that. He's the social trans.
Well, yeah, and
That's
back
what
in
I
the
don't
day, a lot of people
understand.
would have. Yeah, sorry,
I
go
think
ahead, please.
well, I think we should get Lib to get the surgery because I think it's just not transing if you don't get the
That
trans
used to be
surgery.
that's okay. This is exactly the issue. I'm glad you brought it up. That used to be the definition. It was transsexual. It was you had to have the surgery. That's what made you trans, and the category gradually got expanded to include anybody that identified as female, whether they got the surgery or not. Because
Well, and just yeah,
originally identifying as female was the first step leading to eventually you would get the surgery. But now surgery is not necessary. It's just the identifying as female stage that makes you trans. So that category got expanded from something very specific to something very broad.
well,
And
it
it's
used
much
to be called
smaller than gay
transvestism,
category as
right?
well. Do what?
Transvestites were transsexuals who didn't have any kind of augmentation, right?
Right.
So
It was
they
just
were
men that
considered,
got pleasure from wearing
yeah,
female clothes, but they didn't necessarily like desire the surgery or anything like that. So
They
they had
didn't
yeah.
the category
necessarily
of
think they were women though. They liked
transvestite,
the
and
clothes.
transsexual meant you had the surgery.
But the transvestite, I would say, in the old days, didn't necessarily want to be a woman or feel like or identify. They liked the clothing.
Right.
They would say they liked to
Yeah.
dress that way, but they didn't say that they wanted to change to be a woman or that they identified as one. It was more like a closet secret thing where they would dress in women's clothing,
Yeah,
but they didn't
it was
always say, "Hey, I want to change," right?
yeah. And
No, it was
I
more like,
think you
yeah.
see that now with the autogynephiles are still kind of that. They get an erotic charge from the experience of themselves in female clothing, but they're mostly straight men. They're just instead of like identifying with the feminine in a girlfriend or a lover, they identified in themselves like that we're attracted to people because we project our feminine onto them or our anima, whatever. Just swap the
Well,
gender, the other gender.
yeah, and I bet you some autogynephiles, like transvestites, right, also may have not identified as transsexuals because they knew they would lose their gay male lover if they transitioned,
They definitely
right?
would have
So for
lost.
some of them, it could have been, it could have been sort of what's hard for straight people to imagine, but making
So
that sacrifice because you don't want to lose the love of your life because he doesn't want to be with a woman.
I
He's
was
just
thinking about that
entertaining
the other
you.
day. Like when I was growing up, it was like if a heterosexual couple, a man and a woman, and then the woman finds out he was gay, and it destroys her illusion of the relationship. And now in the gay world, you could have two gay couples, but one of them is really trans, and then that other partner would be like, well, I thought this was a gay relationship. I don't want a trans. So you have like a gay version of that with the trans issue.
now gay people are getting ripped off the way that straight people did when they got that big surprise, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now we
But
have
Well,
our
yeah,
own
and
version of that with trans.
is
And
Lib
now,
gay?
because that happened to me with the guy I came up here for. We didn't have the language to talk about in these terms, but I'm almost sure if I talked to him today, he would consider himself trans. And I was not looking, I didn't know what that was, and I wasn't looking for it. I thought he was just an ordinary guy, and we were going to have a gay relationship. And that was one of the things that fucked the relationship up.
Wow,
Mm.
that's crazy.
But it's something that actually happens. This is why I'd say in some cases, especially like I have a cousin who was 16 and depressed and went to get some mental health help, like at the hospital, and essentially they deduced that my cousin was, as a 6'4" woman, trans because they were suicidal. Like this, I think my cousin's gay, right? I think that there's an aspect of this hyper fixation of psychiatry right now and the medical model in Canada where you can't even get a GP unless you're trans. You call around looking for a family doctor, and are you taking patients? Are you trans? Anyways, with transgendered men, with these lesbians, I'll just call them that. That were lesbians until they realized they were men. Often case, once they've transitioned, they're still in the LGBTQ plus community, but now they're not wanted by their lesbian counterparts, and so now they're actually fraternizing with gay men. And in fact, in essence, I know trans men who identify as gay men now, who were actually never originally interested in men. So we're talking about that sexual conditioning, right? What we've got now is a form of very bizarre conversion therapy going on. When you've got now you've got a straight couple, right? A gay man and a trans man together. Which to the heterosexual observer not taking on the language, that's what that looks like, right? And now it's a form of conversion therapy, right? So
Bex, did you say that you have a 6'4" tranny cousin?
Yes.
Did I get that right? What the world?
Well, what's even more interesting? Their mom is a Tatar from Russia, right? So I could really, you guys, there's a lot. You guys think I'm an open book out here. I could tell you a lot of stories still.
The Addams family. The Addams family. What is going on here? What is going on here? I was going to ask: is Lib gay? Is Lib the panelist that used to be? Well, it's on here sometimes. Are they gay? Because I think maybe Lib might be gay and might just be afraid of having his penis turned inside out like a pretzel to get a fake vagina.
With Lib, it's never simple. He considers himself gay. He's with a woman currently who's also in a polycule with other people.
Yeah.
But he's a woman himself, so he considers that gay. But
they're all technically biologically male. So
right. The girlfriend's male too?
Yes, really? I think so.
Yes. Lib has a girlfriend that's a male that has a fiance. Then the fiance has a friend, and the friend's a girl.
So that's exactly my point. That would have been a gay relationship 30 years ago when I was coming up. That's just a gay couple, and now it's trans. Gay is becoming trans.
Lib has a girlfriend that's male. How could it be a girlfriend? I'm lost.
Well, I think right?
What?
If Cynthia and I right now said we're men and right now said we're in a relationship, we would right now be gay men.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
What?
Yeah. And the operation.
That's the problem I have is then you get me fighting against people because I'm like, I can't go along with your fairy tale. Santa Claus isn't real. Mother shit's not real, and I'm not going to keep.
You're
going.
really a boy, but that
Are you calling Jeff a reindeer? Sorry.
That surgery is horrible. Like they have to have therapy for the rest of their life to maintain that opening. That's how come men aren't just so quick to have the surgery anymore. Like that's a lifelong commitment.
And even on the women's side too, they're never going to have anything close to a functioning penis.
Right. That's insane. Because I do have an IG friend who was a woman that turned to a man, and she's a hot looking man. But she, I always think, you don't want nothing down there though.
Hey, so when I had an Airbnb guest one time, right? It was two lesbian chicks. One was like a supermodel looking one, and the other one looked like Grizzly Adams. And they left the room like really late, they left the room like an hour and a half late, and I was really stressing on it. And I go in the room and I'm cleaning everything, and luckily my brain says check the bottom drawer. So I check the bottom drawer, and there's this dildo like the size of my leg, and I was just like, holy.
Did they call for it like lost and found? Did you find it?
Yeah, we emailed them. We said, yeah, we think you left something here. Do you want us to like send it USPS or I mean, no joke, that thing weighed at least 5 pounds.
I don't get that. I don't get all that, but okay.
What don't you
Is
get?
it actually true that the male G spot is up the bum hole? Like, is that true?
The prostate?
Yeah, is that a thing?
Yeah, it's possible to have the prostate stimulated from within and have an orgasm that way.
But
It's not always the
has
easiest.
anyone ever taken a pleasurable dump? There's a
Bexx,
level
you
of
said you
relief.
did stand-up, you're in comedy. You're very good.
I do stand-up comedy.
Thank
Do.
She's
Thank
gonna
you.
ask about. She's gonna ask you all if you've been fisted next. Have you ever been fisted?
Morning, we're all drinking
Did that thing
coffee
you
and
found in the hotel
having
have a
out of
fist
our
on the end
ass.
of it? I've seen those too.
What was I gonna say?
Blast.
I was gonna. Oh well, it's gone.
It was about
You were talking about the
like
pleasurable
having an
dump.
orgasm.
Oh yeah, because I was going to say that. Thank you, thank you guys. There's a system reset that can occur when like there's things in the rectum called Horton's valves, and then there's a valve at where the ascending colon meets the descending colon, if I've got that right. Where your two different size colons meet.
Ascending. Ascending. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with this. What? Carry on.
It's interesting that's one of those mnemonics that works. Anyways, there's the ileocecal valve that's considered the sort of like rectum like valve between those two organs, right, in that system. Anyways, for people who have digestive problems, one of the things that can be done is what's called a system reset by stimulating the three Horton's valves and the ileocecal valve at the same time, right? So there could actually be a case where this pleasurable stimulation that's actually being called a G-spot orgasm has more to do with conditioning than actually sexuality, and has more to do with different brain chemistry we have, like that relief when you take a dump, right? That that sensation can be that it can actually be a bio response that doesn't have anything to do with orgasm. And like when I said earlier, if someone barks in your ear every time you orgasm, if you make someone orgasm, you bark in their ear, you can bark in their ear and make them orgasm. I think that there's an
that's how
aspect of that.
fetishes work. It's like the erotic response gets transferred onto something that doesn't ordinarily have erotic potential.
I think I have a conspiracy theory now. I think I know what's going on. Bexx is on here to condition everybody listening to this right now to have orgasms and bark and take a dump whenever she says certain key words. She's going to trigger people. She's going to trigger the audience.
You know what? That makes. I used to know a guy, and the rumor was he like fingers back there, but he was straight, but he like fingers. But that makes sense what Bexx said, because maybe that's why he liked that.
How many fingers did you use, Cynthia?
I don't know. I didn't do it. But he had like 17 kids, because I kept saying there's like, who would mess with him? But he had.
I thought you were
kids.
using your fingers. I thought
no,
you were.
Heck no. And then I thought about what would I do if I was in that situation and they said, "Hey, you know what I would like if you?" I think I would have to end it. Like fun times over. Like, how does that even come up in a heterosexual relationship or encounter? How do you even approach your partner to do that to you? That's bizarre.
Well, that's where our
generation. There's lots of men I think that do that. That say,
do they?
Hey,
but
honey,
how does it come up? How do you bring it up, Stephen?
I've never brought it up, but if I wanted that, I would say, Hey, honey, can you just stick some fingers up my butt while you blow me? I don't know. I would just bring it up.
No, when
I would try to be gentle about it. I would try to be
I
gentle.
worked in the emergency room, and I've seen a cucumber, and I've seen a light bulb, and I've seen batteries, and I always thought, how
Our
did you?
weatherman put a pickle or frozen sausage. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which.
And it was the lady. She
Yeah,
did the
to go to the
light bulb, and
hospital.
it was in the girly hole, and it shattered, and she had like all these
Pickle butt.
cuts.
Oh,
So I just don't know how they bring that stuff up. That's so bizarre.
Well, there's the story
What
of the
did they
guy
do?
that put the plaster of Paris. He was like trying to make a custom dildo for himself and put the plaster of Paris and had
Oh
to go
no.
Oh,
Oh no. Luckily it's
And a
moist
light-
in there, so it probably never actually dried completely.
how did they
yeah.
get the light bulb shattering? What did they do? What did they do to get that? The glass
So
in there?
she had the light bulb, right? And then she tensed up, and when she tensed up, it shattered. And when it
Oh.
shattered, obviously, there's glass everywhere. And so they could really not do anything. All they could do was like clean her up. But I mean, you just have to, how do you let somebody put that in you? Ooh, that does sound fun. Go get it.
Please,
Unscrew that light bulb right there.
Oh God!
Like there's
wanted to light her up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, I have boundaries, and foreign objects are not allowed.
No floodlights allowed.
No batteries, no double D batteries, no produce.
No baseball bat.
Is this
Yeah.
This is hilarious because I'm thinking, are there five straight people on this panel? Am I right? I mean,
This
none
is
of my
the gay
business
view.
if some of you don't.
It's the gay
Yeah, so I
view.
was just thinking,
Yeah.
I was thinking about how people say, oh, women are way worse than men when they talk about, straight, when you talk about just straight.
I grew
Yeah.
up with women.
So-
Y'all are.
Well, now you can go to your gay friends and take this thing and be like, look at these heterosexual people and what they talk about.
We're worse. No, y'all talk worse than us.
No, women.
No, women are
always
worse.
find a way to take it somewhere men would never think.
I agree.
Really? No. What are
Yeah.
you talking about? I'm telling you stories about men who like fingers. That's way different than I would ever take in conversation.
Well, have you guys ever read the Homosexual Manifesto?
No.
I didn't even know there was one. I should probably look into it.
Jet
It's
is
pretty
failing.
impressive.
It's decades old. It's from decades ago, right? 70s or
Yeah,
so?
the
Queer
80s. Yeah,
Manifesto?
80s.
Oh, was it 80s? Okay.
Yeah, it's called
remember-
it might
I
be called the
remember
Queer
Queer
Manifesto now. But the Homosexual Manifesto, way back, 20 years ago online, was seen as an article written. I could pull it up because I've read it on my channel quite a few times. The homosexual art, they claimed it was just an article written in the 80s that was like produced in a gay magazine. But when you look at it, when you see it now, if you look it up, it's in PubMed. It's been published in PubMed. It was put into the Entropic U.S. Supreme Court or whatever in 2012 as presented to the courts in 2012, written in the 80s.
Court.
And what I would say, here's what I want to say. This is to tie this all back together to that hermaphroditism, and even this concept of prostate. Versus prostate, right? And this orgasm stuff. Here's what I would say is that
prostate? Is he?
And his shape
I thought
weight,
you're bringing
I
him in.
could be.
He sounds like something he'd be
Low
involved
state.
in.
I think so.
It does. It
Prostate.
does. What I'm going to say though is if there is hermaphrodites on the planet, because when I started my channel, I asked a few different people if your daughter came home with a hermaphroditic baby, right? And said, be careful, this is how you have to change their diaper, blah, blah, blah. You have to clean differently, right? What would you do? Right. Would you take care of that baby? So many people on my channel were like, that's the seed of the devil. I'd have to off it. Like, it was awful for all these people running around being like, save the babies, right? Not a hermaphroditic one. Right. So this is going to be a small rant, you guys, but when you look at language and the resistance of the cisgender people to the language of being cis as juxtaposed to a trans, right? Then if you look at the language of homo versus hetero sexuality, when they first introduced the concept of homosexuality as a label to heterosexual people, they would have been like, fuck that, they can't reproduce, right? Sexuality has all to do with reproduction. You know, being an asexual person is not possible because that's parthenogenesis. That's self-reproduction with no partner. You know, you're not asexual, you're celibate, right? And you're actually hypo or hypersexual, it would be the term that you would use. I'm a hyposexual person naturally. I'm not attracted to sex. It's not my thing. It doesn't motivate me. You know, you're not an ace. An asexual creature actually reproduces without a mate. So my point would be that homosexuality could be, if there ever was a third gender here that was completely, let's just say, had a vagina, penis, and testes, right? That you would actually have a case where a homosexual reproduction could occur, right?
Oh.
Where they're able to reproduce together. And now we might be looking at, if we tried to silence a hermaphrodite by medically offing them all, and by actually creating a wombs that if you noticed something was going to produce a hermaphrodite, you flooded the womb with chemistry to make it in the binary. Now we may be getting to some reason why this homosexual manifesto is so significant, because it's not just about gay people. It's about actually us genociding as a globe, genociding this otherness, right? That threatens the very existence of the binary. That could actually literally assimilate the binary if it could breed with men and women and has a dominant genetics, right?
Is that a fear of yours? Because I feel like the binary is so established, it's not going anywhere. Like, good luck getting rid of bimodal.
Well, I would say socially, yes, you're right. But that's where I'm saying that if this homosexuality is an aspect, if true homosexuality is different than gayness, and what I mean by that is that a homosexual person is a person who's hermaphroditic and can reproduce with another hermaphroditic person, then in fact, gayness, being gay and being a lesbian, is a binary person attracted to either a hermaphrodite or a same-sex person, right? So homosexuality technically isn't a word. Like, I mean, it is, but it doesn't represent this idea of same reproduces to same, right? Sexual reproduction is how people reproduce, right? So everything else is mutual masturbation, you know, like, so again, if this homosexual,
like the object of attraction, not necessarily anything related to
exactly
or internal.
Exactly. But if we were to look at it, if we were to read this homosexual manifesto and realize it's not gay men and lesbians saying, screw you. It's a hermaphroditic race saying, look what you've done to us. And we're going to come back tenfold. You know?
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wait, are you saying that
hermaphrodites?
Sorry, are you saying that transgenders are secretly asexual so they can make their own babies or something?
No, what I'm saying is no. What I'm saying, good question though, Sean, is that in the language of sexuality beyond heterosexual and homosexual, we also have asexual, pansexual, which pansexual is sort of like an open-minded bisexual, right? But there's people who identify as asexuals now, right? So an asexual person is someone who has no sex drive. Right. That's how we would summarize it, as someone who wants to have sex. Most ace people, they're just not driven by it. They don't want sex. They're, they will be in a relationship and will put out, but it's not their motivating factor. And many of them spend their lives single. They don't want to have sex. They're just not interested in that.
I don't know how entire culture develops around not wanting to have sex, but like why it's an identity.
Well, yeah. And so what they're really saying is I'm celibate and naturally celibate, right? Because an asexual person can't exist. Like in scientific language, asexuality is when an amoeba reproduces with no other amoeba it doesn't have to sleep with an amoeba. It's like when you cut a worm in half and it makes two, which isn't the case. But, it's essentially, that's what asexual reproduction is, a form of reproduction in science. It doesn't happen in humans yet. But I guess maybe Mary, you could say Immaculate Conception is a story of parthenogenesis where somebody makes a baby with no mate, right? then
So you're saying that
that would be
transgenders could be the people you're talking about, hermaphrodites,
not at all.
and they could.
Yeah. That transgenders. Yeah, I do believe that transgenders, intersexism could be a direct result of the suppression of what naturally happened when hermaphrodites started breeding with the binary, right? And then the let's say the church and state was like, whoa, you can't have both, right? And it started like circumcising, like it started this tradition of circumcision so we could check, right? Let's check and make sure everybody's not anomalous. So we'll just make up a tradition that allows us to alter. We're actually looking for a vagina behind in the taint. We're looking for a perineum, that has that either isn't there or is definitely going to. Yeah, the taint is going to lose it. The taint is going to become an opening and that's where I would say when you look at the language, I was raised by a doctor who taught us all the Latin words for our bones and everything. And, it's funny because my dad taught us everything proper. And we used to tell people, I remember my family tells a story. I've been trying to not to tell this story online, but I will anyway. My family tells a story about me as a 5-year-old telling my kindergarten teacher that my perineum hurt, right? Because my dad taught us that we had a perineum and a penis. My brother had a penis, I had a perineum. Yeah, but that's a taint. That's not a vagina. It's so strange that my dad would teach us little girls this one wrong word. And my family was good friends with my kindergarten teacher through my lifetime. So every time the teacher came around, they'd be like, ha, 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 remember in kindergarten when little Becky said that her perineum hurt and you didn't even know what a perineum was, Bobby, remember that? They'd laugh. And as I got older, and I'd always be wondering, I'd always be like, why you guys laugh so hard? Like, what happened to my perineum? A bunch of adults sitting around talking about a 5-year-old's vulva hurting. Anyways, that was my dad's goal with teaching his children the Latin words. I brush over that quickly, but teaching the Latin words to stump the adults around them so his kids look smart because he's a megalomaniac. That being said, why I was bringing that up at all is that this prostate is not a Latin word. Like prostate, this idea of a G-spot being something stimulated through the anus, actually could be because we're looking at in a Swire woman, that prostate is her uterus, right? Like,
wait,
so
you mean in a trans woman?
no, I mean in a Swire woman, right? In this XY and perfect androgyne insensitivity syndrome, that is intersex condition where you're an XY woman that can have a baby. Well, what aspect of the male body, could be a uterus? Well, that's your prostate, right? So this idea that there's a G-spot that could be stimulated on this shriveled organ that's a uterus.
Pardon? It means leader, ruler, or guardian in Greek. Prostates, one standing in front.
Yeah.
And they have small titties, swires.
And it's called that because it's in front of its position at the base of the bladder, in front of it.
Interesting. So they say.
Right? Did anyone in your family name a niece perineum as a name? Did anybody end up using that?
A drag queen?
No, perineum. Perineum.
As a drag name?
No, in her family, did anyone? Did anyone in Bexx's family end up naming a child perineum? It almost sounds like a name, like Penelope or perineum. You know what I mean? Perineum.
Yeah,
it almost does. Perineum.
You're reminding me of the guy that won the Biggest Loser one year, whose name was like Chisholm or something like that. His name was like Jism or something. Yeah, there are people out there though. There's people who have the name like areola, chlamydia. There are people who,
Oh God, no! Really?
Got a Loachman. Daniel, how do you know what's going on in the lion's head? That fascinates me.
What if Mother Mary, like Jesus's mother, actually had sex with a hermaphrodite, and that's how she got pregnant, and it wasn't immaculate conception, it was more hermaphroditic conception? Bexx is what I'm asking. Could that be possible, that a hermaphrodite actually impregnated Mary?
Well, with the way these occultists revere the non-binary and the melding of the two, it could very easily be the case, right? I'm reading The Left Hand of Darkness. I shouldn't say I'm reading it because I've been doing nothing but talking online for months. But I started reading. I started reading the book on my channel months ago, and it's actually really interesting. It is about a binary person
Is that
visiting a
Ursula
non-binary
K. Le
world.
Guin?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, that is a good story.
Yeah.
That is a good story.
Yeah.
Well, are you
So,
suggesting
but
that the G spot could be a place where men could have children? Are you sure? Are
I
you sure
am
not?
saying, I am saying that I am purporting that the prostate gland is some form of, I'm not going to say shriveled uterus because that implies that everyone was always
Is that like
woman,
how
and I
the
know that.
nipples are like men have nipples? It's
Well, that's why men would have nipples, is because, let's say there's a trip switch. Let's say something happened to devastate all the women on the planet. You've got this potential biologically for with the right settings,
we have our
if you
prostates.
to potentially, ingest some plants or whatever, and create a little
So if
girl
the
that could
world
breathe.
runs out of women, y'all will be okay. The men will be okay.
Well, right
Because they
now
have
they
the
need
nipples.
donor oocytes. They would need an egg bank and fertility treatment, right? But I'm just in the process of looking to see if there's any cases of Swire women actually naturally becoming pregnant. Because at this point, they would just be going into a fertility clinic. Even the fertility clinic isn't going to phenotype them and tell them they're an XY woman, right? They're just going to pull out, they're just going to say, oh, you have a different kind of infertility that involves needing a donor egg. But yes, we can still use your DNA and the DNA of your husband to create a baby, right? They can make baby with 3 people's genetics, right? They've been doing it for a long time in labs.
What?
Yeah,
Hang
they
on, I
just
need to
started.
check with the AI on this one. Like a baby made of 3 humans instead of 2?
Well, they have to with these Swire. Yeah, you take the mitochondrial DNA out of a donor oocyte and you put in the egg, let's say from the Swire woman, and the semen from the husband. And now you've got a baby that's produced of their genetics, but needed a donor egg. So they've just started doing this in rats.
It's called
So
a
that basically
3-parent baby, and it's a relatively new technique, but it is a thing.
well, they're going to say that it's relatively new, but what they're going to say is relatively new about it is taking 2 male genetics, right? So if you and your partner, Jeff, wanted to have a surrogate carry a baby, right, then you actually have the ability now to create a baby that's you and your partner's, right, and doesn't
Like
have
2
anything
guys,
but the
like 5
donor.
DNA. It doesn't take a
Yeah, your
female
2
egg.
DNAs can be mixed in a woman's egg minus the mitochondrial DNA to produce a child for Jeff and his mate, and
And
carried
it'll
by
have
another woman.
me and my partner and the egg DNA. So it'd be 3.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the reasons why DNA 33andMe or 23andMe only goes on patriarchal lineage and not mitochondrial DNA, because we get a lot more information out of mitochondrial DNA, is because actually these donor oocytes have likely been used for a long time in fertility when you don't tell the person that that's what's being done. So, and they can't actually delete all of the mitochondria. They probably thought that they could delete all of the information out of the donor egg to produce it, but in essence, you can't delete. We're talking about electronic data at the most microscopic level, that's biological. So in essence, if we did a 23andMe based on mitochondrial DNA, you'd have a lot of people that went to fertility saying, why is there a third party? It just would screw with what they've not been saying that they've needed to do for fertility, right? It would actually screw with these elites at the top who don't know that, in fact, most of this was probably designed to control their fertility, not ours. Because they're obsessed with keeping the wealth in the family and making sure that Harry doesn't knock up a stripper and all that kind of jazz, right? So it's an aspect of the wealthy people of the world to cause infertility in themselves, and likely as chattel, if we are chattel to them or cattle to them, they keep us around because they need.
It's
they need
okay if Harry. It's okay though if Harry knocks up Swires or hermaphrodite,
Yes.
but not a stripper.
Yeah. Exactly.
He can
Yeah.
not, but this is the true threesome. 3 people forming a baby. You Frankenstein the baby, or you Swires the baby. It's like 3 people contributing DNA, right?
What does, because that doesn't happen in the natural world, right? This is something we have to engineer. So do we have data enough on how, what the differences between those babies are, other babies?
It
Are
doesn't
they
happen in
pretty
the natural
comfortable
world
that they're
because
just going to be as normal as the rest of us?
Well, that's where I would
and then
say let's assume that almost all babies in fertility clinics, I would assume that a lot more babies in fertility clinics are using donor DNA outside of the couple that's actually producing the child. So,
Wait,
um,
I'm so glad I'm
yeah,
gay. I don't have to worry, or I'm not having children. Oh,
I mean, they've
the
normalized.
world
If
is
you think
getting
about it,
really complicated for people that
infertility is very normal and has
are
been normal
responsible
for
for.
most of our lives. They don't talk about it. It's like, don't talk about miscarriages. Don't talk about, it's none of our business how people produce their children, right?
I thought
So
infertility was a recent thing with lifestyle and chemicals and stuff. Was
You want
increasing
everything
in
to be
male.
about chemicals, so
I say it's a story as old as the Bible. You know, you can't
there's
make a
porn
woman from a
stars.
man's rib. You can make a
So there's
Swire woman from a man's rib.
You could make
I want to
anything
make
from
a
a
man.
man's rib. In reality, you could make anything. You could make a hammer from a man's rib. But in reality, there are porn stars that have had sex with 500 guys, and they didn't have a baby that was 500. You know, but the semen of 500 men put in. You get what I'm saying? So it doesn't work that way
To be fair,
in
they are
nature.
probably on narcotics not to get pregnant.
Yes. And that's where I would say if you
They
look at some
could
of
be,
these
but
old
they
Jerry
swallowed some
Springers,
too. They swallowed some as well. It wasn't just.
they did.
Yeah. Sorry.
If you look at some of these Jerry Springer shows or Maury Povich, that he's not the daddy ones, you know, back in the day where you would just you'd have this woman on stage, they'd have checked 14 different guys. And it's easy to assume that there's a 15th she can't recall when she slept with 14 men in a month or whatever, right? But what I would say is at that time, I used to think, why don't they test for lower levels of all these men in them? She may have very well produced a child of 14 men, you know, but because we don't believe that can happen, and we already know that she's a slut, you know, it's
I
easy to
think the
assume that
reason
there's
we
one that
don't
slipped through
believe
the
it can
cracks.
happen is because science can't reproduce or explain or make it happen.
Yeah, science couldn't actually find what, or they didn't set the electron microscope to look for smaller amounts of each man in that baby, right? So if it did know how to
I don't know if
detect,
that works.
well, yeah, I don't know how it works either, and I don't even know if it could all be bullshit. I've never owned an electron microscope, so,
Beck,
but I know
are
that
you
we know they lie. So, and
sorry, Beck.
liars, please go on.
Sorry, Bex. Are you into the esoteric conspiracy theory stuff?
Oh, God, please don't. It sounds like maybe though.
What's meant by esoteric conspiracy stuff?
Alternative, like pseudo, like you know the crystals and
Snake people.
like the stuff you're saying. I'm quite skeptical of. I'm trying to say it in a nice way.
I am
But
too.
are
I
you
don't believe
into,
there's a centralized, coordinated elite with
Well,
plans
all of
to
the stuff
enslave
that
and
I've
rule the rest of us. I think there are people at the top, and there are multiple different groups and individuals with their own like self. It's more like a bus with like 100 steering wheels with many different people driving it in many directions. That it's like a single bus with a single steering wheel and a single driver, a group driver.
Yeah, I hear that, Jeff. To answer your question, Sean, other than that last thing I just said about a baby being made with 14 fathers, right? Maury Povich. Everything I've set up here is from PubMed documents, right? Like it's all medical research. I haven't said anything to you that is made up by me. I've made some inferences going back in history that I feel support it, but there's nothing I've set up here about intersexism or hermaphroditism or anything that isn't supported by scientific papers.
I agree. I've looked into it a bit myself, and I think that Bexx is speaking the truth. And I'm even open to the idea that the baby batter from 15 different men could form a baby, a single baby, if a woman was a hoe. And yeah, no, why is that shocking, Sean?
That's the story. What's the Nightmare on Elm Street? Is
Freddy
that Freddy
Krueger?
Jason?
Yeah,
Yes,
Freddy.
That's how Freddy came about.
And sometimes
Really?
they do tell the truth in
Yeah,
fiction. It's a whole bunch of men, like in a prison or something, or an
Yeah,
insane asylum,
his mom.
something like that.
His mom was
They-
a nun who worked at a prison, and she.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you think that multiple sperms can enter the egg at exactly the right time?
Well, just
It
because
would
they
be
told
more-
you that only one. I mean, why are people so limited to think that just because they taught us, oh, it's only one all the time? Well, who knows? Like, how would you know that 2 or 3 couldn't go in?
Well, I can tell you,
Right?
I wasn't with 2 or 3, so I know
Well, you
that
weren't, but I mean, some
Yeah.
other women were. I mean, there's some women that have had 2 or 3 penises in them at the same time. You know?
Well, at the same, well, not at the same time.
Absolutely. Yep. The same time.
All right,
3
I'm
men
scared to
can
turn
fit
my
in
mic
one
on.
hole. 3 men can fit
Hear
in
what
one
y'all are
hole at
talking
the
about.
same time. How is that even physically possible?
You're gonna have to Google it. look up some movies.
I'm just saying, I just can't imagine 3 like what.
It-
How
it
would they even
happens.
stand around her to do that?
I knew
It
a girl in
happens.
college that she supposedly had 6 at the same time.
In the same time, like how do 6?
Yeah, like let me like I think it was like mouth. Well, there was
See, that's what I'm
one hole,
thinking.
back
The
hole,
same
mouth.
hole.
I think it was ear was one of them, and maybe like
I'm thinking the
breast,
exact
like,
same
pretty far
hole.
behind.
If y'all are talking about, because he's saying they all they all penetrated the egg at the same time. So that's
You can't
now if
show
you
it on
said-
YouTube, but yeah,
Let me go back.
No.
there's multiple penetrations of the vagina at the same time, 2 to 3 different guys, and yeah, it does happen in porn. You can look it up. You can look up the movie.
Well,
It
and to be
happens.
honest, if our bodies, if what they've told us about immune systems is correct, right? That our bodies basically get invaded by a foreign object. We replicate that foreign object. We adapt that foreign object to basically attack itself, and we're left with this attacker cell of that self, right? So like we're left, basically what I'm saying is we take in information from foreign bodies all the time into our bodies and assimilate it to our advantage. So I don't think it necessarily would take multiple semen you wouldn't need the 14 semen. First of all, semen can exist in the body for over 24 hours, and there's been things of it being even longer. What I would say it's more likely is that if a woman is substandard, let's just use panel verse language. If a woman is sleeping with 14 betas, right? Who just the body is like, hey, wait a minute, I don't get, this isn't going to be the best optimal outcome, and the body has all of this foreign information coming into it. There's nothing saying there isn't the opportunity to save genetic information in our immune system, let's call it, so that when the right time occurs and that moment of fertility occurs, the body's like, boom, here's genetic information, recent genetic information from a whole bunch of men that we can put together to make the best man. I know that doesn't support Freddy Krueger, right? But see, the world, yeah, but also some of these intersex conditions do come with higher levels of, some of them come with low IQs, some of them but these are the phenotypes that you can see and visibly see are different. So a lot of studies were done on Klinefelter men in prison in Germany. They have a higher propensity to be violent. Now, Klinefelter men do have a smaller penis. They also have like weird head shape and long bodies and, these other things that could actually show that they do have, that they have a mutation. They have an extra gene, an extra chromosome. And with that extra chromosome comes, other problems other than just anomalous genitalia. But some of that can be boogeyman stories told and reinforced through the Freddy Krueger stories, so that we're actually always thinking that we can identify what an intersex person is by what they look like, and opposed to actually looking out into the world and saying, hey, wait a minute, there's tons of undiagnosed intersex people living amongst us, and breeding. you know,
They're not all
and
Freddy
with that,
Kruegers.
yeah,
They're not all Freddy
yeah.
Kruegers with blades on their fingers. I think,
So
sorry for interrupting, but I think Auntie Dearest might have a confession to make in terms of the 3 penises inside at one time. I think
What?
she might.
And
I think
also,
she might have
there
done
was,
that.
and also, if there was multiple semens, wouldn't there be multiple births? Like I do remember in England one time there was a lady that went to get artificially inseminated, and the technician didn't use a new dropper, and so one of the babies was white and one of them was black, but it was two different babies, but from 2 semen. So
Oreo. She
multiple
had Oreo
semen.
babies.
No, they were
She had
literally.
Oreo
And you
cookies.
know what was messed up? They named the black boy Coon, and I thought that is
What?
messed
No
up.
way. No way.
Wait, where was
Are you
this?
kidding me?
In America?
No, it was in England.
In England?
Coon?
In England, they
Yes.
named they named the black kid what?
Coon, and I remember thinking that they should take that little boy away
What?
just off of them naming
Who did
him.
they name the white baby?
I don't remember. I just remember because I was young when I read that story.
No way. Was that the National Enquirer story or
No,
something?
it was a news story because
They named,
it was
why
what
would they name him Coon?
it was the
Come on.
importance of using the dropper. The technician didn't use a new dropper. I'm gonna
Oh
see if I can
gosh.
find this story.
She used to use turkey baster?
No,
It
she
already
went
had
to
some
a clinic and everything.
Yeah, I know, but used a baby batter was already on it. I used one.
Cynthia,
Yeah,
you got a
that's
link to
what
that
happened.
story. I'm fascinated by it.
I'm
I'm trying
looking
to
for
Google
it.
for it.
Coon. Oh my goodness. That's
so I just
crazy. A black and
I'm
white
trying.
cookie. Oreo. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask. Uncle Fatty seems to be and I could just be the way they're typing that. He seems to be really impassioned by the idea that I might not have ever talked to an intersex or trans person. I think he's actually my straight self may be sounding more bigoted than it should. You know, so I hope that's not the case. But, you know, I've had trans and intersex friends since the late 90s. I'm not going to talk about what Kool-Aid I may or may not have drank in university, right? I you know, it's none of anyone's business.
Yeah,
I'm a
'cause
straight
I can
woman,
separate
you know, like,
transgenderism from
yeah.
the ideology. The
She's
gender
not
ideology.
bigoted.
So the
I'm
only
just saying
one
I have my own history with trans people.
Well, Fatty,
Right? I have my own
come up and
yeah.
talk. Come up and
So I
join.
would love for them to come up and talk. I know that I could very easily have a conversation with Nev. Now, could they very easily have a conversation with me? He's saying I've made a claim that I should Google it before I make the claim. The only claim I made was the idea that 14 donors might be able to make a child, and it's not a game. We weren't given minds to not use them to think and theorize. So I don't need to Google
I've
a
never
thought
seen
on YouTube that no one's ever had yet. I'm not, you know.
I've never seen Bexx be bigoted. She's speaking using medical terms. She's
I
not a
don't get the
bigoted
impression
person.
she's bigoted.
She would never. I've never even seen her tease a trans person the way that I have. To be fair, I mean, I have teased trans people.
Yeah, you're way more
once in
bigoted
a
than
while.
she is.
I wouldn't say I'm bigoted, but I do tease the trans once in a while. But I tease everybody.
Yeah.
I tease white people, black people, gay people, straight people. I don't discriminate. Everybody's open. Hermaphrodites. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if Uncle Fatty's a hermaphrodite. I'm not sure. But
He's I don't know if you've met Fatty. He is his own unique character.
his name just doesn't really Uncle Fatty. I don't know how I can respect that name. It's just kind of he's an Uncle Fatty. I don't know.
But he's not fat
I've called
though.
people, but I've called people fatty, so I don't know. I've done that before. I admit. I confess.
Bexx, you sound interesting. Are you like into like religious stuff, like cults and stuff, or are you
Religious
atheist?
cults?
Basically?
I've researched a lot of that stuff. I had a theory a long time ago that, I always thought that we were here to pursue enlightenment, that we were here to actually, that there was something about being here that is substandard and only part of what we can really be. So I thought that academia was pursuit of enlightenment, that, when I learned the word benighted, which means to become unenlightened, I was like, whoa, how can something become unenlightened? I thought we were pursuing enlightenment. I thought we'd never been there. So I started looking around at religions and esotericism and different philosophies and different ideologies, just to try and see, well, if everybody has a piece of the puzzle, but people are too secular to share their knowledge and too divided to actually share the pieces of the puzzle with each other, thinking that they're the righteous ones, they're the chosen ones, then I went through all those disciplines looking for a piece of a puzzle that sort of spoke to my own, what I felt like I'd been born with. It did start in church. I was 2 years old when I went to the first church I went to. My family was not religious. I sought going to church with other families because I was looking for a man in black. I would just say, this is not what I would say at 2 years old, but my dad's a doctor, and everything my dad spoke was too it wasn't spiritual enough for me, right? It was scientism, wasn't my church, right? So
denomination was the church.
The first church I think was Anglican, if I'm correct, although that family may have switched, but was definitely Christian. So I do have a lot of experience in studying these things. In 2020, it was the first time when I got, when I learned about all this adrenochrome stuff and, this idea of spiritual battle, is when I actually started really studying them as if there might be as if we're supposed to believe it. But it has been, I always actually was much more like Stephen in the sense that I didn't want to put a label on what I understood. I didn't want to put it in the language. I think Stephen's his model more abandons that language and looks to throw it out. Sorry to put words in your mouth, Stephen. But as of late, I've been trying to work my model into, why do I even need a God in it? If I'm a good person and walking in a moral direction with good virtues, then, is all of that just to model that? So I don't know, that's a long-winded way of saying never have I ever been religious, but I've studied a lot of religious and philosophical, other religions that people don't see as religions actually, but they are. Like scientism is a religion.
Interesting. So you're into like QAnon and all these theories about alternative theories and all that stuff.
I'm not into QAnon. I saw the influence of QAnon, and definitely looked into it because because of that first thing that I would say took me from thinking I was just a theorizer on my own to, wait a minute, there's a lot of this helps make sense of things. I've sort of come out the other side a little bit, and I think I share a lot more philosophies with Jeff in the sense that I'm not the theys aren't as coordinated as we think. I think that adrenochrome may be a boogeyman story, but the trafficking of children, I mean, I'll take it right down to they're trafficking embryos, right? They're trafficking embryos under the guise of killing babies in abortions. So take that one, Fatty. You want to talk about ideas that aren't supported by Google. I would say one of those ideas is that babies are cryogenically harvested in abortions and then harvested and then cryogenically frozen and used as embryos in a Gattaca style fertility clinics. So take that one, Fatty.
Fatty, why doesn't Uncle Fatty and Auntie Dearest come on here? They seem to have some issues. Why don't
Auntie never panels. Come on. Fatty's come up before.
Oh, he's been up here?
But I
don't know if
he when he comes on or not, but sometimes he does.
What does Uncle Fatty identify as in terms of gender?
I think he's a leftist. I think he's heterosexual.
Mm-hmm. He's been married.
He's from northern Idaho, where they have all the white supremacists. So a lot of his development has been in reaction to that.
He's a potato picker from Idaho.
In the 80s and 90s, there was a big neo-Nazi movement.
So he's like Flow State. So Flow State will fly into Gen X Jeff's panel to defend Lib against another man, fly onto his own panel. He was already there to make sure Nev feels safe, but they'll fly onto my panel and hold me accountable for what another man says and talk to me like I'm not. Yeah, so I'm just saying, so that's one of the gayest things I've ever seen is Flow State flying up here to make sure Lib was okay.
He was white knighting for Lib And
Well, I'm just saying, and I love Flo. I only speak about this because I got no issue with Flo. I know Flo is someone who can take care of his own, so I'm not trying to start a war. I'm just saying his behavior represents Uncle Fatty, who's actually standing there screaming at me like I've never done the research of what, like I've never talked to a Nev in my life, right? So I'm not anti-Nev, but the narrative out here actually. 2 months ago, I had, because I'm, well, I'm just going to say it's, I don't need to be schooled by, I don't need to be schooled by Uncle Fatty what Lib could teach me. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying that Lib can't speak for, or that Uncle Fatty can't know what Lib knows, right? But, when I saw Flow State fly in here yesterday or the other day to do that, just like he did make sure Nev was okay on his channel, to sit there and take care of the needs of a trans woman when you've literally put a cis woman, under unnecessary stress for the sake of the same drama about what some other man said about a woman. It's actually one of the gayest scenes I've ever seen. Right now, I know that Flo knows how to manage drama. So he's doing it from a marketing perspective and from a catering to the audience perspective. So I can see that, but I'm the human woman, right, that dealt with 3 months of people running around saying, look at Bexx, like she can't, you can't talk about somebody who's cut their tits off, but everybody can talk about my genetics and accuse me of being hermaphrodite or intersex. It's because I'm interested in this stuff. So the hypocrisy in these people, it shows the brain damage of the feminism that they've taken into their person, and they hold in their mind an ideology instead of their own personhood.
You think Flo has taken in feminism?
Well, no, but I think Flo knows how to cater to the audience. He knows 80% of the people can't think for themselves. So, he will make sure that he caters to those 80% and doesn't lose them.
Oh, well, yeah, he doesn't have our audience.
A trend here on the internet, for whatever reason, men love to attack women. And when women say something back, it's pointed to, why do you even respond?
I have noticed a little bit of that, yeah.
And it's interesting because no one seems to be, why are you attacking the women? But it's,
you know what?
It's
Sorry.
just bizarre.
Sorry if I interrupted you. Finish.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. That kind of happened to me a few days ago on here, with the women thinking that I was attacking them. Dutchie something, I can't think of her full name, but it said
And
Dutchie on the screen.
Barbie.
And then some other Ezra.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, Ezra. Yeah, but she was kind of like more of a neutral participant.
But they thought but anyway, I don't even attack women if I know that they have an Arby's roast beef vagina. I mean, I wouldn't attack them even if that was the case. I would make a joke maybe.
I think that sometimes
I don't have any hatred for women. Go ahead.
Well, sorry. I think some of the jokes and the things that men say thinking is funny is really not to women.
Well, it is to, that's what I'm saying. It's masculine norms and masculine culture versus feminine norms and feminine culture. So it's perfectly normal for the people in the in group of males that are doing it. It's women from the outside come in and they experience and interpret it a different way. But I experience female norms differently than the women that.
But that's where I would say
what are you saying, Jeff? What are you saying? The word you keep saying the word the male feminine.
Norm, like
norm.
That is what you're describing about men from the outside looking in, and saying what you're saying about it. I'm saying for the men in the group, that is normal for them. It's normal to pick and tease and interrupt and talk whatever people are criticizing for.
Gotcha.
And
it's
women have
norms
too, like safety and picking up on the nonverbal signals and having that taken seriously and having people kind of look out. So there's masculine norms and feminine norms. And I think that male norms get criticized from a female perspective rather than from their own group perspective.
Yeah, but Stephen would never go flying in.
I only care what other men have to say with me because that's the group that I'm in. Like, and women I only listen to the people, listen to what black people have to say about themselves. I don't need white people to tell me about black people. I can get it from the black people themselves. And I don't need women to tell me about men because I am a man. I only care about what my in-group thinks.
And I can't just picture Flo flying into your room and
I
just
can.
coming off.
I didn't notice.
Well,
He did.
here's what
Flo
just so you.
defending Liv is not something that I normally expect to
Well,
happen.
here's what I would say, Cynthia, just to paint the picture properly, because I'm being a little bit dramatic myself and isolated.
I feel like something's missing.
What I would say is on the panel was Stephen, Lib, Dutchie, Dennison, or maybe it was the next day. Anyway, on the panel was a group of people, and Flo came up and Doug, was like, sort of postured in this. Are you done? Are you done? I'm using the wrong words here, but are you done jabbing at Lib for his sexual for his gender or her gender choices, right? So he was more posturing to Stephen than he was protecting Lib. He knew Lib did not need protection, right? So just to paint the picture more clearly, it was more about coming up, easing tensions, right? Because he was joining a panel where he and Stephen have had these dramatic tensions. He came up with humor, right? But if you look at the behavior of it, knowing Flo, who flew into my channel the next day, he's one of the few people that have had me over on a panel, tempted me over. You know how hard it is, Cynthia. You were like, "Hey, Bexx, come see me," and I'm like, "I'll come see you," and then I never came, right? Because I don't understand. I don't like being demanded on panel.
Everything at his panel.
Yeah. So, but that day where I had, where I watched everything go down with Toilet Bowl Earth, the first time I was ever there was the day after Stephen and I had our falling out, and 2 days or whatever in 24 to 36 hours, I was being challenged on flows. I was being reacted to by Stephen, and then I was down on Venus's that day as well, right? So it was a really big day in terms of meta battles for me. And that day over at Flows, considering I'd never been over to Flows before, when I hopped up on panel to be challenged by everybody, legitimately, like I'm just saying, to discuss what had happened and why I didn't backstage call and all of that jazz. But also why I talked, Nachiquita had his own, Nachikita had his own, his own things that I'd done, like allowed snaps on the panel to degrade him and all that jazz. There was a lot going on that day, right? So for me, it has great significance, in the way Flo introduced himself to me. We'd only ever had one interaction before then. We knew each other, but I really wasn't someone who'd watched many of his panels, right? So, and that's part of why when, I held Barbie accountable for part of it, because she was on that panel. There was me, London Man, Benton, like there was a lot of people up there. The panel was stacked and inviting for me to want to defend myself, right? And yet there were also strangers there to me. I'd never met Barbie. I didn't know her. I'd never talked to her, and the way she came, the way she reinforced everything, everybody sort of treated me like I was a bigot, right? For not, all I was doing was defending Paul's right for free speech, right? That's all I was doing, So, and it was pushed too hard. And in hindsight, it was a bit of I would say a self-groomed exercise in understanding how this internet works. Right. So, but still to this day, I mean, I've been held accountable for what Paul said for like four months now. I have these meta enemies, right? But nobody's ever gone to address Paul about what Paul said. Right. So I know it's all just for drama. It's all just to keep perpetuating, whatever, that whatever reputation people want to have about me, which I think Uncle Fatty is a good example of he has a preconceived notion of who Bexx is, and he can't put that filter down.
I can never tell who's just reacting to the chat in the moment and who has a past history with the person that they're reacting from. And to me, Fatty looked like he was reacting to the immediate comments.
Well, and it's my nature to assume, that this far into paneling, I mean, I didn't even have a channel yet when already people were running around talking about me. So, that's like a lot of so I was, there was a lot of there was a preset, people had a preconceived notion of what Bexx might be before I ever even started, really being known.
I don't
So
have
I'm
a
just thinking.
past history. Sorry, I don't have a past history with Uncle Fatty, but there's a couple in the chat room that seem to basically have issues with me, and I don't know them at all.
You do have a
Anti-purist
reputation, though.
and
Yeah,
just
Steve,
Frank and
I,
Arpol.
you have a reputation, and I don't know you.
Cynthia,
This is my first
well, then
time.
why would you judge by reputation? What?
Because
That's
that's what people
ignorant.
do. Like,
And
That's
well, I
ignorant.
also
I
see
try
you in
not
the
to.
back chat at Flows. Like I've seen you in the back chat with the things you say in the back chat, but I've never sat on a panel with you until today. But I had already heard about you.
But I
Just
was in the
as I'm
back
sure-
chat because I was kept off the channel.
And
That's the
just
only
as I'm
reason I
sure
typed.
you've heard about me before you met me.
Oh, I heard some things about you that made me blush.
Aw.
Did it
I'm
involve
kidding.
roast
I'm
beef?
teasing. I'm teasing, Cynthia. I'm joking. I didn't hear anything about you, to be
Oh,
honest.
good.
See,
Do the curtains match the beef?
It's hard to be natural right people, isn't it? It's hard trying to be nice sometimes.
We've had a lot of them on here, so I'm not sure which one, but the panel starts to all look the same after a while. I don't remember from one day to the other.
Wait, Bexx, didn't you come over to Flows one day and sit on the panel for a while and have good conversation? And you've
oh,
never
for sure. We're talking. This was months ago. Yeah, all of that was months ago.
Never been
And
back.
Pardon me.
And you've never been back, or I haven't.
Was that
seen,
day that you and Lindsay and I and a bunch of people we played those question games and stuff? Is that the day you're talking about?
Yeah, and you've never been back since then.
I've been
Well,
back
I
a few
appreciate
times
it.
over on Flows. I've been over there, but I've never been really welcome on there. I don't think I'm really wanted on there. To be honest.
I don't know what happened, Steven. Like, because I gotta be honest, like Flo and Barbie have just really, really vocalized some things about you, and I just don't understand. I mean, you seem
hatred
cool here.
Yeah. Well,
But
I don't know. Either I'm too cool or too handsome for them. I don't know what it is. But
well,
Barbie,
I'm sure that's not it.
it could be. But when it comes to Barbie, it could be. I mean, when it comes to Barbie, she doesn't like calling me King Steven. So if I say call me King Steven, she gets real upset over this little stuff. She did show her panties to me one time. She pulled her shorts down, pulled up her panties, and showed me her blue panties. Because I asked her if she wears granny panties. It was all in good fun. And now she's like, I did not show you my panties. I didn't show you my panties.
Now,
she gets real angry.
Now, speaking to someone who's a male that kind of picks on a woman, or do you do that for fun, or do you do it just because you enjoy getting a rise? Or
wait a second, are you assuming that I pick on women? Most on my channel are women. Almost all my moderators.
No. I'm just because I myself have a dude that's always picking on me, and people are like, "Oh, if you leave him alone, he'll stop it." And I'm like, "No, he's just an ass." But
Cynthia, I've never asked you to show me your panties.
No, but I'm saying, do you do it like, do men pick on women just for the reaction? And if we didn't show a reaction,
not all men are the same. Men are different. I mean, I don't pick on Bexx because she's a woman. I don't pick on. I have mainly women on my channel. I would say it's
I'm a good example.
50%.
I think I am a good example because people could say, well, Bexx, Steven picked on you. You know, like that's where people, it's just someone just came to your channel, saw the short, started from there. What people don't realize is the tens of hours that we had of conversation beforehand, because they were long streams, they didn't get saved, that the misunderstanding, my reaction to having had such sound conversations with Steven, I look tactical, so people could say, well, does that warrant his what he said about you? Well, what did he say about me? Right? He called me Bexile. I've told everyone I was not skinny, right? My best pictures show me to look heavier than I am, that, like, I'm just saying what everyone out here calls other people, labels other people's mental health. So if he called me, questioned whether I had borderline personality disorder or other things, I've talked about depression online. I realize people see that as clinical, so I'm not trying to justify it and say, like, could he have done things differently. Yeah, but that's not Stephen. If you already knew Stephen's way, he pushes back at people who push at him.
Yeah, but so
right?
do a lot of people on here. Steven
Yeah.
didn't strike me as any different than anybody else that comes on here. So I didn't understand what they were singling out about it because I didn't notice anything unusual. That's not normal for this panel.
Exactly.
I think Cynthia is assuming that I'm a bad guy and going by the rumors and think she's kind of
No.
assuming that
I don't think
pick
I
on
think
women.
Cynthia's being very fair, but she's going to be one of the most fair-minded people
Well,
around.
well
I
let me
don't
ask
think
her, why
that
do you
at
think
all.
I
I'm
pick
just
on women? Just because you heard that, or have
well,
I done that?
because I myself maybe I'm projecting a little too because when Barbie was upset and frustrated and speaking about it, it was the same frustration I felt from my situation.
So it's
And
by
it's like,
feelings,
yeah,
it's not by.
like at some point, I just as a man and as a woman and coming from the South, like men protect women. So at some point, if you see that your jokiness or your norm or what is who you are is actually offending somebody, it seems like, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying I've noticed this pattern on YouTube that men tend to go in. That's when they push the gas harder, and the women are just like taken back, like what is happening right now. So then we become defensive, and Barbie has said herself,
Listen,
out.
Barbie came over to my channel after all that. If she was so traumatized, she came over to my channel when I had a live stream calling me a whiny bitch and stuff like that. So she really wasn't traumatized. She put on an act over here. And that's what fools people like you.
Dutchie's
And I'm
part
not
of a
putting
troll
you down,
group.
but
I don't know if y'all know that. She's a member of an official troll group. So I think a lot of what you think you're seeing on here is not actually what you're seeing.
who's part of a troll group?
Dutchie.
Who's Dutchie?
Oh, Dutchie. Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's like
the
an official
Dutchie-
troll. They have a group. and
Dutchie
they
is a
do
friend
Fire
of
Engine Red.
Dennis's that was over here on Jeff's panel the other day.
I didn't
assume
know
they're
them at
friends.
all. Somebody was
Yeah.
saying that Steven knew these women. I didn't know Dutchie at all. That was
I
the
like
first
your
time I
name,
saw her
Pastor
when I
didn't
came
even
on here.
notice. It sounds like there was a whole 5-act play happening.
I
From
never
the
knew
time
her.
Barbie dropped off by the time the first word was spoken, and I didn't know any of that was going on. So by the time the conflict happened, I was in the middle of it and didn't even see it coming.
Oh, I wanted to answer Cynthia though. She said about the way men react or protect. If I had to hop off the internet every time I thought I offended somebody, I'd never be on the internet. Everybody's offended on here over everything. So are you saying that men shouldn't even have the right to speak on the internet?
No.
It's one thing to protect women, but I'm a masculine man. I'm not going to just take shit. I don't care if it's a woman dishing it out or a man or 5 or 10 versus me. I'll go on a panel where it's 10 versus me. And you've seen it, Cynthia, if you see me on Flow State.
I've
got
never
a shit
seen
show.
you. See, the only time I see you on Flow States is you're in the back and him saying,
No, I've been on.
I haven't seen you.
Somebody even paid for me to go on. They paid $20 for me to get on there.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and kept paying to get me back on. They want me on there. And then Flo said, I'm making money. He made $400, he said, because I was over there. That's how much I stir people up. And some people assume things rather than trying to understand things. A lot of people assume, well, he's just trolling. I'm not trolling. I'm being me. I'm being my authentic self, just like I think you are. If somebody says, Cynthia, I'm offended. I don't like your face. I don't like your voice. Would you hop off the internet and say, well, okay, goodbye. I'm triggering this person. Well, then I'm not going to do that either. I did on my own choice leave this channel to let Barbie, because she couldn't handle it. But she's a grown woman. She could have left. If she's a big, strong woman, a grown woman, and she came back for more, and I wasn't saying anything to her. If I wanted to trigger the living shit out of her, if you think then go hard, I go harder on men than I do on women on here. I've made men cry on here, so on the internet. Yeah. So if you think that I was not going hard on Barbie, I
don't know.
Why would I? Because I'm standing up for somebody. I don't start shit. I defend myself.
It looked extreme.
You're from Texas. You should know better than that. You should know that if somebody comes into your house, well, you live in Texas. If somebody comes into your house attacking you, You got a right to self-defense. If somebody
Word.
swings on me, I'm going to swing back on them. I don't
Facts.
start shit. But if
And
somebody hits me, I'm going to make sure their teeth are on the ground and they have to pick up their teeth.
But there's this
Same way, don't
perception in
swing
some
at me.
circles, in some groups, that if the person that swung first, that you swing back, is a woman, that there's a power differential, and so there's this temptation to
I thought
kind of.
we're equal, though. They were saying on
Well,
that same
I
show we're
actually,
equal.
that's my problem too that I run into,
Can't
because
have it
I
both
treat women the
ways.
same as I treat everybody else. I do
So
not
do
treat them
I.
differently, and
That's
they
what they asked
expect to
for
be treated
decades.
differently.
They asked for decades to be treated equally the same as men, so I do what they
Right.
asked for.
So there's like this double message of treat us the same, but don't treat us the same. But only we know from moment to moment what of those apply.
And it can change moment to moment what they
Yes.
want,
But on that
depending on
same
their
note,
feelings. Right?
though, this is where I would say there's a message from men online where it's like, hey, if everything was perfect, we would be the protectors. But hey, I'm going to protect her and not her and not her because this one's behaving like a woman and this one isn't. Right.
But you
So
know what?
there is
That's
equally,
true.
there are equally mixed messages from the men on which women deserve protection and which don't.
Some men,
So
not the
that being
Why
men.
do
said,
Some
women
men.
need protection if we're egalitarian?
well, and that's where I would say that I know I've learned out, and that's where I would say we've all taken the feminist tea, even right down to thinking that these gender roles were always all encompassing anyway. There have always been people that didn't fit the model.
Yeah.
The homosexuality is the best example, right? It's not a
I didn't
byproduct.
drink it.
It's
I
always
spit it
been
out.
there. Yeah, exactly. But
I
I'm just
never
saying, so
drank.
for me,
I don't even like tea.
when
I don't even
when
like
Ant
tea.
called his daddy, when Rant called his daddy over at TML's and his daddy came in flying in, calling me a C word and a part of the LGBT community because of my avatar and all this stuff. Like 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh my God, why are you calling me that? I just laughed and turned around and said, you're the one being, cunty, right? Not me, right? You're the one who called your dad, man. You had to call your dad to take on me, right? So now that being said, though, there is an aspect of maleness that I would say Benton reinforced was that, men can lose rank with other men, whereas men don't see themselves as able to lose rank with a woman, right? So I don't think all men think that way, but there is a bit of that dynamic that comes into group mentality when you're dealing with online. 90% of the people are male. That environment does get it is hyper masculinized, and that energy can come across as contradictory.
How do you
apply to all, though,
survive it or navigate those messages?
Sorry?
Like, how do you and Cynthia, how are you so successful here? Like, you seem to be able to manage it like mature adults, even being female.
Cynthia and I?
What are the strategies that you use to successfully participate?
Well, I would say part of it would be something Mitch bugs me about online all the time, because he's always dragging me saying, oh, I grew up online, right? I wasn't. It was the experience with you guys online alchemizing all of this, right? So I did used to freak out, cry, scream. I didn't scream, I'm a girl, don't do that. But the energy came from that, right? Which actually, even now, it's where I learned to dominate the StreamYard microphone. I can be heard the loudest, right? And which is pretty impressive. But then people call me male. That's why people want to, I'm sure it's happened to Cynthia as well. And Cynthia and I are actually very different women, right?
You both seem to be able to handle yourselves around men, though, and handle men. Like, y'all don't seem as at the mercy as some of the other women. Not to mention, we're all behind a fucking screen. We're behind glass. Nobody's actually a danger to anybody on here.
I think that
yes,
we're
exactly.
We're secure.
You find me
in who
dangerous,
we are.
Cynthia?
Like, we know who we are.
Well, and I'm just going to put my cupcake in. Yeah.
Do you find me dangerous?
Nobody can tell you what you're not.
Right.
Do you find me dangerous?
Exactly. Yes. That's my mode too. That's why I don't take people seriously, because regardless of what they say about me, I'm the one that ultimately knows what's true or not. I don't need them to be right about what they think about me. I know what I think about myself. I know what's real.
It gets childish, though, when they run around from panel to panel to panel to panel lying, but they start to reveal who they are.
Right, that's why I let them do it, because they're doing who they are.
But that was hard for me. Like, I was like, shut up. Like, why would you spread lies about somebody? But
It's
Well,
gossip.
I don't go around. I don't go around spreading lies. I just want to say that men get a lot of mixed messages, not just on YouTube, but out there in the real world and society.
Oh yeah,
We were
that's
told
probably
not to. Well, we were told not to open doors anymore for
what?
women. We were raised to
Who told
open
you
doors.
that?
Yes, we were. Wait a second. Just let me finish here. A lot of women will say, "Hey, I can open the door myself," whether it's lesbians, feminists. This happens to men. That's happened over the last 10, 20 years or plus, where men get messages like that, and eventually it's just like, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know,
I
you
have
want
never
equality? Well, you're
in
not.
my
You're not a man, though. So
It's
no,
you're
I'm
so
less
you
saying
in
can
the
I have
never.
South.
never in
It's
my
You're
life
probably
not a
not as
met
man.
tough
So
where you
a
are
man.
as much, but up here for
I always
sure.
thank them. Oh, thank you for being such a gentleman today. I appreciate
It's
it.
in feminist areas, like feminist cultures,
Yeah.
where women are they get very hostile at the idea of a man having to do
Absolutely.
for them,
Just today when I was buying my
except when they
plants,
need a man to do for them.
I had to ask men to help get the plants that were high up on, like, hanging from the racks. Like, you have to let men be men. And I do think somewhere along the way, keep in mind I am older. I think Bex is older as well. Like, you have to let men be men, and somewhere along the way we stopped letting that, and people stopped trying to tell other people how to be, including how to be a man, how to be a woman, how to be a Christian, how to be in this, how to be a that. I don't know, it's really weird how people
I
tell
don't
people.
Yeah,
tell women.
especially if you're not that thing. That's what I said
Right.
earlier. I'm more
That's so
likely to let
weird.
another man tell me how to be a man than let a woman tell me how to be a man.
Right. The metaverse.
Chuck.
And there's no cookie cutter. There is no cookie cutter, right? Like, I mean, maleness is a spectrum, femaleness is a spectrum. You know, this idea that if we could make a perfect world like it used to be, if it ever was, you know, and then all the women would have babies, and all the men who want to have, all the men would find their mates, right? Well, that Jeff doesn't fit into that model, right? So Jeff right there is like, nope, I'm good, right? Like, so long as there's a mate for me, right? Like, no, I don't. I'm a man who's not here to breed and not here to, you know. I'm assuming that, Jeff, that you don't want children, you know. Like, that being said,
thank you.
I'm not opposed to you adopting a child, you know. Like, so I'm not trying to act like that's a necessary condition of homosexuality, is not involving yourself in the breeding pool, you know. But so this idea, so there's going to be people out there that never fit that model, that, you know, were the women who were there to be the mistresses to the dominant men, the single people, the voluntarily celibate people, biologically called ace, you know, like, which that might be the stuff that was cringe to Uncle Fatty, was my analysis of the language around homosexuality and heterosexuality. Still trying to figure out. I know. Yeah. So,
Maybe he's a troll.
anyways,
I mean, I got called.
Yeah,
I got
yeah. It's
labeled a
interesting.
troll.
Yeah.
I got labeled a troll. We could go into the whole troll thing, where that word is so overused and misapplied all the time on the internet, on YouTube, where everybody that they don't like or disagrees or says something, oh, he's a troll, he's trolling. I mean, that label is used all. It never used to be that way 25 years ago on the internet. I mean, troll was a specific term used for if this person's intentionally going there to rile people up, then they're
That's
trolling.
what I know.
Now it's just used to, everybody is calling people, they're just a troll, just a troll. Just
Well,
'cause
that
they
confuses
disagree.
me because I think they mean it in the original way, and I think they're here for the. So then I read them a certain way as a result.
I think they weaponized it. I think they're using it just to try to slander somebody and get people to not talk to them or not listen to them. That's what I think.
It's just like junior high school.
Yeah, I think we need to accept the spectrum, you know, independent of sexuality. Expect that we always would be a spectrum. Trying to force all the men into a model, or all the women into a model of one sameness is literally retarded, and I mean that as in stunting. You know, it literally slows down the progress of us. You know, if we didn't need the masses to raise children like a village to make a community, to raise a child, we wouldn't build buildings with predominantly single apartments in them. Every apartment building would mandate being a 2-bedroom minimum, so that everybody who wants a child can have a child, without risk of later not, or even have a foster child. You can't have a foster child without an extra bedroom, but you can't bring in the income to support that child, to pay for the bedroom. You can't even exercise those options as a poor person who wants to care for a child whose parents can't care for them right now, right? So,
well, we're not all the same. I mean, it's
yeah.
obvious. I don't know why people expect every man to be the same or be exactly what they want, or every woman to be exactly the same or what they
We haven't
want.
had that for years. Like for decades, people have been fine with gender. Like, they know that there's a range of outside the gender norms. It's never been an issue. I don't know why activists are still trying to weaponize this as an issue. Like, they're the ones pushing the extremes of that tolerance. Because up until this point, nobody cared about androgynous people or people that looked a little bit differently. It's been decades since it's been an issue.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, a lot of gay people do live in privacy, not participating in pride parades, right? Assumedly, still being seen as brothers by their neighbors, and not as lovers, right? Like, and they don't consider themselves in the closet. They just consider themselves old school people who don't display public displays of affection, whether they're gay or straight. Their same sex, their heterosexual counterparts of that same generation aren't running around like rubbing genitals, as 70-year-olds or 60-year-olds or whatever, old fashioned people. So, it's, there is a level of privacy and sexuality that people exercise, and that subset of the population obviously isn't seen, but back in the day, they were always seen as brothers or sisters living together, and everybody knew they weren't brothers, right? It was just the way society
I never knew
didn't
that.
flaunt.
I thought brothers did live together. What?
I'd say the McDonald's movie, The Founders. Is that what that's called? I think it is called The Founders or something. Anyways, in that one, there's more homosexual innuendos between those two men than I've ever seen in a movie. I think they were literally trying to show us that those two weren't brothers.
On the panel outside of me than I've seen.
Sorry, say that again, Jeff.
I said there's more homosexual innuendos for the people on this panel outside of me than I've ever seen too.
I
know. Shout out Flo and
Rip. And I'm not even what's talking.
My mom told me a story when we were young that I think it was great uncles that were brothers that lived together. I don't know if they were brothers now, or you got me confused, Bexx. I'm looking at my family history.
Like, we had 2 PE teachers that lived together and made it kind of obvious to speculate about.
I remember growing up, like I was raised Catholic, and I thought some of these nuns might be lesbians, but
yeah,
they were pretty homely looking. I was thinking, they couldn't get married, so maybe they became nuns because they just
but put them in the right habit.
The right habit.
That could do go a long way to cover up a lot of homeliness.
Yeah, well, if they had a paper bag over their face, I mean, some of them they were scaring the kids. Scaring the children, like we'd run away from these former nuns.
Not just scary. Like, I think of that's the kind of like authoritarian Karens that I can't stand in like real modern life. That's the type I imagine the nuns were. Like, you had to go to a school and be taught by nuns. That's what I imagine they would be like.
I think they wanted to be teachers then, to be tough on kids. Like, they wanted to be bossy, bully. They wanted to bully children because they felt like, they got gypped somehow in life out of looks or out of whatever, and they just kind of took it out on the children.
Take it out on the kids.
Yeah.
But then the nuns I actually knew growing up, because I grew up Catholic, they were very nice. Like, they were completely normal, nice women, and we loved all of them. None of them were mean.
I knew one nice nun, but she was in our family. It was one of my grandpa's sisters. So she was pretty nice, but she worked with inmates and stuff like that, like some nuns do, and go into prisons and stuff. But yeah, so she was.
Did y'all ever see that? What was that documentary about the nun
The
that was
lesbian
murdered.
nuns.
No, she was, and then she was eliminated. But one of the nuns came out and talked about all of the bad things that really happened to them, and it's just as bad as the P Diddy. It's horrible. It's horrible, guys.
Oh yeah, I did see something. There was a lot of abuse of nuns by other nuns, by the ones at the top,
Fathers.
the superior mother superiors, and then also by priests and bishops.
Yep.
I mean, they got abused and impregnated and everything, and then
Yeah.
buried, and really abused, like real heavy stuff in Canada too, and in Ireland, and like all over the place. That's happened.
It's just really it is. The older I get, the more I realize nothing's as it seems. Music industry, Hollywood industry, religion industry. There tends to be an underlying world,
Like an underbelly to it, or
yeah,
like
like an
not
underbelly,
necessarily a conspiracy, but
an underbelly that
yeah,
that
like
isn't
A
openly
deeper layer,
talked
right?
about. If you
yeah.
peel the layers back of
I
anything,
used to think about that about Disneyland, like as I
oh
kind of
yeah,
grew out of childhood. Like, what what is Disneyland really like when you take away the childhood filter? What's all the stuff that really goes on under? And I try to think of like the most horrible things, like ride attendants selling drugs to kids. Like that's where you go to get your drugs. Go to Disney, and they have this. Like I just think of stuff like that. Like what's underneath the illusion of Disney once you grow out of childhood. And my mind would
It's
come up with stuff that probably is way crazier than anything happening in reality.
Well, I don't think you might not be far off though, with there being some underbelly aspect of Disney, not with the whole, I don't know, people do the conspiracy, stuff of Disney Hitler, that kind of stuff, but also just the sheer fact that Disney properties around the globe are autonomous, like city states, just like the
Yeah, in
Vatican,
Orlando,
just like
I was
London,
very
just like
glad
DC, right?
when
Yeah.
when
How did they get away
Afghanistan
with that?
started to curb some of that.
How did
They
they get away with
claim,
that?
yeah, they claim that it was, that they weren't paying taxes, blah, 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 because they put in the infrastructure in and around Disney, the Disney play itself. So in essence, not paying taxes was because the city itself benefited by the infrastructure put in by Disney, right? So I don't know if like Disney Fire Department services a bigger area than the Disney, like if Disney property actually has, suburbs on it, that's might be why, that the actual, boundaries of what they own is bigger than what we see as the park. But I would say that there is a huge, I mean, it's part of what they used to say, that the Disney Cruise Line stopped at Epstein Island, the idea of underground tunnels. Transanimation was something, we know that Disney himself
Transanimation?
is, well, Disney himself is cryogenically frozen, they say,
Oh
that
my
he's
god.
with,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
right now.
That's the
Animation,
that's the perfect note
transanimation in
to
the,
wrap up on. I was trying to wrap up by 3 anyway.
okay.
Yeah, I
Walt
think that's
Disney's
gonna take us
popsicle.
down a whole entire rabbit warren.
Well, I could just give you this one thing, is that transanimation in the 1828 dictionary is sort of that get out idea, like that you could put somebody's spirit in another person's body, right? So if you actually look at like animation, as we call cartoons animation, but what if there's an aspect of Disney being so wealthy, right, that he's actually, that I'm not even trying to make this conspiracy any more than it's just sort of, we don't know that Coke owns Pepsi and Pepsi owns Coke, right? They're false competitors just for the sake of marketing.
I did notice
That
they
I would say,
stopped doing the Coke and Pepsi taste test.
yeah, true. Probably because people would get onto them that they're actually probably exactly the same recipe and the same company and a different label. But that's where I would say, if you look into animation, the idea that animation can be the transference of one spirit into another spirit's body, and the fact that Disney himself was cryogenically frozen, there could be aspects. We just learned Monsanto and
That could be
Pfizer
art.
merged.
I've heard art
They're
describe
just,
that.
yeah. There could be, he was part of the whole Disney, going to the moon landing and filming and stuff like that. So the normies would be able to believe that if he was a rich man who invested in that endeavor and they believe it happened, that they could easily be also convinced that he has, invested in Pfizer and all those other things, right? So
he's a Disney pop. He's a Disney pop.
Yeah.
He's
I never know
frozen
if I'm
Disney
one of
pop.
the normies or not anymore around here.
Well, the Club
Mhm.
33, Disney was a 33rd degree Freemason. He is dressed up in the regalia.
I heard
in
about Club
photographs.
33 just the other day.
They,
and
you
now
got to pay a
fast-
lot of money for that to
I
get
want to
in the
go
club.
sneak into it or get into it somehow. Hack my way into it.
They have Picassos and it's stuff like that on the walls. It's very exclusive.
Have you been?
I can't.
If you
say
showed
it.
up and said the king
It's a
is here,
secret.
would they let you in? Would they know who you are?
I'm not allowed to say. I'm not allowed, but it's wonderful in there. But I can't say.
Your silence.
They have good
Um,
food. I'll just say that it's delicious. But I haven't been in there.
Did you say good what? Roast beef?
Good roast beef. It's better than Arby's for sure.
All right, I think we're gonna end on that. I don't know how to go from there.
I'll sign off first. I'll hop out first.
Yeah, do you have anything you want to promote or channel or anything? I'll put your channel in the.
Well, I mean, people can search at the Bexx Factor in the next week or two. I'll be bringing my main channel back up. If you're not already subscribed, searching it right now will yield nothing but other people's response videos and things about me. People are saying that Disney was not cryogenically frozen and was never a Freemason. I am willing to believe that as well. But what I wanted to say was mostly just to you, Jeff. I'm watching you monologue the other night before your panel came up. I don't watch all your shows, but it was a real treat. I'd love to see you monologue more. You're a real gift to this community, and I appreciate watching you evolve on panel over on your own channel. It shows me how people came in and tried to manage me. I just really respect you and the way you think, and thanks for having me.
Oh well, thank you for being here. That was a great. Did this truly? I was not when I woke up today. I always wonder what's going to happen on the streams. Nothing could have prepared me for today's carousel of topics. So thank you for that.
Well, and I'll say this too, because Cynthia and I haven't been on many panels. I promise I never hexed you, Cynthia. If I ever said anything that would have indicated that, I promise I was playing. And it was really nice to see you again today, Cynthia.
Yeah,
and of course, as always,
come around more. Like,
Good
really,
to see you.
will.
I'm glad you were here.
Mr. King, what's your pitch? I'll put your channel.
My channel is the SanityMachine channel. I want to say that I'd love to have Jeff on sometime as a guest on my show, on my channel, on a live stream.
I'll go on.
I think that would be great. I think my audience would love it. It was good to see Bexx on here. It was fun. Bexx said that she did not hex Cynthia. I got to be fair. I did, Cynthia. I didn't know you, but I hexed you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I take it back. I'm gonna reverse that hex and give you good fortune. So anyway, I'd love to have Jeff on, and Cynthia, you're also welcome to come on live on my channel. I do live streams. I call it the El Diablo Radio International Show, the greatest show in hell.
Oh, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm there.
So it's the greatest show in hell.
Yeah.
Before.
And you got to come over there sometime. We have a good time.
Well, yeah. Let me know. How do you have Discord or email? How do we coordinate?
Well, I do have email. You could email me at stephencolleen@gmail.com. And that would be the best way to reach me.
It's the same as my Twitter name, so it'll be coming from there. I'll do it after the stream.
Awesome. So I'd love to have you on. And Cynthia, you can come on live as well if you want to hop over to my show sometime. And anyone else in the chat room, even Venus Cupcake, she's bashed me in a bit different places, but she's welcome as well. I'll have anybody on too. I've never hexed you, Cynthia. It was just a joke. So. But I haven't hexed anybody. I'm a dark sorcerer. I'm dangerous, but I don't hex.
And I'm asleep and a shadow. So you're in good hands.
So thanks for having me on, Jeff.
We're good with the demons. We could get
so much. Yeah, it was so much fun to be on here. So thank you for having me on. again.
thank you
It's a
for
lot of
stopping
fun.
Well,
by.
thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Bexx, for clearing that up. I do appreciate it. It was a good conversation today, and we did go through several topics, and I feel like the roast beef is going to live on, which is interesting. And I guess I'll see you guys again.
Oh, and I found out that I can. It's called a raid or something. I can drop my audience to another stream when
Oh
I end
yeah,
mine. So if there's a stream out there that
Jack
I
should
could,
be getting ready to go live. Hang
should
on a
I do it
second.
to Jack? Like,
Let's see if he's
should I
live.
raid Jack? I haven't tried doing this before, but I've been raided before.
Oh, Jack is live, so you could
Let me
raid
see who else
Jack.
is live.
I don't know how to do it. Arby's roast beef and cheese. You know, Arby's is one of those places you don't miss it until you eat there and you think, I should eat here again, but then you never do for like a long time.
I forgot it existed until today.
Exactly. Alrighty, guys. Y'all have a good afternoon, and I'm sure I'll see y'all around the Paniverse.
Okay, and she's right. I'm not going to try to raid Talcott today, but he is streaming if you're looking for another stream, and there's probably other things going on in the Panelverse. I may do an evening. I know I've been teasing with an evening stream. I almost did one last night, and I was actually like getting ready, setting up, and this wave of fatigue came over me. I have no idea where it came from, and it just wiped me out. So we'll see what happens tonight, and if not, we'll definitely be here tomorrow. Happy day, happy Sunday, happy week. Let me get the music kicking. Thanks, guys. I really do love it. We talked about audience capture earlier. I love this audience. There's no way I want to give it up. So I think we're stuck together. All right, take care, people. See you tomorrow. Yeah, I did too, Stephen. Thanks for coming on. We both made it fun. All right. Until next time, whatever that is.